Hey guys, tonight we are checking into a fourth floor walk-up in Murray Hill, in the middle of an industry that decided around 1993 that the most beautiful thing a 16-year-old could do was look like she had skipped lunch since Tuesday. This is the heroin chic era, the strangest, glossiest, and most quietly destructive decade in American fashion. Not the runway fantasy, not the moody black and white retrospective with the licensed Mazzy Star track, the actual version. The one with weekly weigh-ins on a yellowed plastic bathroom scale, 500 calorie days, a Diet Coke for breakfast, and a debt to your agency you did not know you had signed for. Like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy drifting off to slow, specific, mildly horrifying history. Big thanks to whoever dropped this topic in the comments. I hope you are warm tonight and that whatever you ate today contained more than 400 calories. Drop a comment letting me know where you are listening from and what time it is for you. Somewhere out there it is the small hours, and statistically one of you is lying in the dark wondering if Kate Moss ever just ate a full bowl of pasta. She did not. We will get to that. Dim the lamp. Crack a window or kick a fan on low, whatever your room does for white noise. Tuck the blanket up under your chin and settle in, because tonight your blanket would have opinions about your hip measurement, and we are going to spend some time with the people who lived inside those opinions. What did a working model actually eat in 1994? And does cigarette plus black coffee count as breakfast if you believe in it hard enough? How did a multi-billion-dollar industry convince an entire country that looking like you were quietly disappearing was the height of glamour? Could you survive a weekly weigh-in where the number was never quite right, the deadline was always specific, and the woman holding the clipboard had absolutely no interest in your feelings about it? Who decided that size 0 was the new size 8? And did they eat lunch while they decided it? What happens when a 20-year-old photographer dies of a heroin overdose and the President of the United States has to give a speech about your industry at a fundraiser? Congratulations! You just woke up in a model apartment in Murray Hill, New York City, 1995, 4 other girls, 1 bathroom, 1 mirror placed at the worst possible angle. Your agency called yesterday. They said you need to lose a 1/4 inch off your waist before Thursday. It is currently Monday. Good luck. You wake at 5:45 a.m. in a bunk bed 3 feet from another bunk bed in a 4th floor walk-up on East 8th Street. The room contains 4 girls, 3 suitcases, and 1 alarm clock that nobody admits to setting. You share this apartment with your agency. The agency also owns the lease, the furniture, the security deposit, and your share of the electricity bill, which has been quietly added to what you already owe them. Today is a casting day. Casting days begin with a weigh-in. The weigh-in begins at 7. The agency is patient, organized, and quietly relentless. The bathroom has 1 mirror and a schedule taped to the wall above the toilet. The schedule belongs to the agency. Your name is on it, so is your current weight, your target weight, and the number of weeks remaining to close the gap. You did not type this schedule. You did not approve it. It appeared one Tuesday and has been there since. The way a parking ticket appears official, disappointing, and not interested in your side of the story. Breakfast isn't breakfast. Breakfast is a negotiation. The agency keeps the kitchen stocked with black coffee, 2 kinds of diet soda, and a bowl of fruit nobody touches after the first week, because fruit has sugar and sugar has consequences, and everyone here is extremely aware of consequences. The girl in the lower bunk, Petra, she's from Leipzig. She arrived 3 weeks before you drinks her coffee, standing at the counter and stares at the middle distance with the focused calm of someone defusing a very small bomb. She does this every morning. You have stopped asking if she's okay. She is okay. This is what okay looks like here. Now, the agency itself. You owe it somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 before you've booked a single job. That number covers your composite cards, your portfolio, your agency test shots, and your share of this apartment, which is being billed to you at a rate that would make a Murray Hill landlord blush. The math always moves in one direction. You earn, the debt shrinks a little. You don't earn, the debt grows. The debt is not dramatic about this. It simply continues. At 7, Donna arrives. Donna is a booker. Donna carries a clipboard and a white plastic bathroom scale in a tote bag, like a farmer's market regular with very specific priorities. She is patient, professional, and quietly relentless. Donna is not unkind. Donna writes the number down, compares it to last week's number, and either nods or says something like, "Let's try to find another £2 by Thursday." Finding £2, in this context, means losing them. The phrasing is careful. It has always been careful. You are 16, 17, maybe 18. You are standing in your socks on a bathroom scale at 7 in the morning in the East Village while Donna decides whether this week went well. Donna writes a number on the index card. She does not say it out loud. The number is 1,500 calories below what a doctor would suggest for a girl your age, and Donna has never opened a medical textbook in her life, and she does not need to. The number on the card is the number on the card. The smell of the apartment by 7 is hairspray and cigarette smoke and the specific brand of anxiety that sets in when 4 people with the same professional problem are all awake in a small space before the sun has fully committed to the day. Someone lights a cigarette off the stove burner. Someone else checks her measurements with a fabric tape measure she keeps in her toiletry bag next to her toothbrush, because that is a normal thing to keep next to your toothbrush. The tape measure has its own opinions. It always does. You get dressed in whatever the agency has approved for castings, clean, fitted, something that shows the line of you without trying too hard. You check the mirror once. The girl looking back has good bones. That is the correct thing to have. You pick up your book, your model's portfolio, your composite cards, the paper version of your entire professional identity, and you head down 4 flights of stairs into a February morning in New York City, which has not gotten warmer on your behalf. You stand on the scale in your underwear in a hallway at Ford Models on Lafayette Street. The scale is a household bathroom model, white plastic, slightly yellowed at the edges, propped against a filing cabinet. Your booker writes your weight on an index card with a Bic pen. You are 107 pounds. Yesterday you were 106. The booker does not say anything. She circles the number twice and slides the card into a folder. The folder is thin, organized, and alphabetized. The index card is not a performance review. It is not a health assessment. It is a ledger entry, the same way a grocery store tracks shrinkage. You are the inventory. The card goes back in the folder, and the folder goes back in the drawer, and you go back out to the hallway in February, which in New York means the wind comes through the lobby gap every time someone opens the street door, and you are standing there in your underwear, and it is cold and the number was wrong. A booker named Linda, 3 doors down from the scale, handles the talking part. Linda has a way of holding a pen between 2 fingers and not writing anything while she speaks to you, which is more unnerving than if she wrote things down. She tells you the client wants you at a 23-inch waist by the 14th. Today is the 4th. You have 10 days to lose a 1/4 of an inch from your midsection, which is not a sentence that has ever appeared in a medical textbook under the heading reasonable goal. Linda clicks the pen. Meeting over. The measurement system has opinions. Your bust is 33 inches, which is fine. Your hips are 34, which is fine. Your waist is 23.5, which is a problem that has a deadline. Standard editorial requirements by 1994 have settled at 32 to 34, 23 to 24, 33 to 35. A window so narrow it functions less like a size range and more like a keyhole you're expected to fit through sideways. Agencies call this maintaining your measurements. The measurements do not maintain themselves. That's your job. You are 17. Your body is not finished deciding what it's going to do. You eat somewhere between 500 and 800 calories a day, which is less than a toddler's recommended intake, and you are being asked to make the number on Linda's yellowed plastic scale go down by specific amounts on specific schedules. The body, to its credit, resists at first, then it doesn't. The scale doesn't have opinions about this. The scale just has a needle. A girl called Petra, who has been at Ford 8 months longer than you and therefore knows things, tells you over black coffee that the trick is to weigh yourself at 6 in the morning before you've had anything, after the bathroom, before you've done anything a body does that adds weight. She demonstrates the posture heels together, perfectly still, not breathing for the first 2 seconds. Petra delivers this advice with the seriousness of someone explaining a tax filing strategy. The coffee has no milk. The cigarette is a Camel Light. Neither of these is optional. Of course, the cigarettes are load-bearing. The industry does not frame this as a crisis. The industry frames this as a lifestyle. The cigarette is an appetite suppressant, a prop, and a social currency all at once, which makes it the most efficient object in the room. It does 3 jobs for the price of 1, which is more than can be said for you on a $500 a day editorial rate. You put your clothes back on, you have 2 castings this afternoon and 1 go-see in Midtown. The folder goes back in the drawer. The number is circled in blue ink, and in 10 days Linda will click her pen again, and the scale will give its verdict, and the index card will get a new entry. You return to the apartment and drink black coffee out of a chipped mug that belongs to nobody. You eat half a grapefruit. You eat the half with a spoon, slowly, sitting on the kitchen counter because there are no chairs. 3 other girls drift through the kitchen in various states of preparation. 2 of them are also eating half a grapefruit. The 4th is eating nothing. Nobody comments on what anyone else is or is not eating. The unspoken rule is older than any of you and arrived in the apartment before the lease did. The apartment is not an apartment. The apartment is a billing address with beds. The agency calls it a model apartment, which is the real estate category for a 2-bedroom flat in Murray Hill where 4 teenage girls share a bathroom, a single overhead light, and approximately 11 square feet of closet space between them. You owe $2,200 a month toward the rent. You owe it before you've booked a single job. The debt is already running when you arrive, and the debt has a concept of compound interest that is very well developed. The agency advanced the composite cards too, the digitals, the portfolio prints. Your first round of testing shots cost roughly $1,800, and you will see none of the photos unless you book something, at which point the $1,800 comes off what you earn, not off what you owe. By the time most girls leave New York 3 months in, 6 months in, occasionally never, the total sits somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000. This is basically a Klarna installment plan, except the merchandise is you and you signed the paperwork at 16 while your mother waited outside. A girl named Sloane from outside Atlanta has a system. She keeps a sleeve of Rye Crisp crackers on the windowsill and eats 2 in the morning with a smear of peanut butter thin enough to read a newspaper through. She's been here 7 weeks. She has lost 4 pounds and booked 1 lookbook job for a catalogue brand in New Jersey that paid $400 and that she is not allowed to mention in her book because it's the wrong kind of work. The crackers are disappearing faster than the bookings. The survival foods of the mid-1990s working model are remarkably consistent across agencies, cities and apartments. Black coffee. Cigarettes, usually Camel Lights or Marlboro Menthol. 1 piece of fruit, typically citrus. Diet Coke, room temperature, out of a 2-litre that's been open since Tuesday. Occasionally a single rice cake, which has the caloric value of a strongly worded suggestion and the texture of a ceiling tile. The cigarette is doing work that food used to do. The daily total, across all of it, is 500 to 800 calories. Marta drinks her coffee black. Sloane eats her 2 crackers. You eat half a grapefruit and watch the building across the street. The medically recommended intake for a young woman your age is 2,000 to 2,500. Nobody in this kitchen is discussing bone density. The bookers are discussing quarter inches. Back in the kitchen, the 4th girl, the one eating nothing, is standing at the window drinking coffee and looking at the building across the street. Her name is Marta, and she's been here 4 months, and she has the blankly patient look of someone who has learned to mistake hunger for calm. The window faces north. The light is bad. Neither of these things is on the agency's list of concerns. You take the 6 train downtown with your portfolio under your arm and a Polaroid composite card in the side pocket. The portfolio is black leather, scuffed at the corners, and weighs roughly 7 pounds, which is the only weight in your life nobody is monitoring. You stand because the platform shoes you are wearing are not designed for sitting. The shoes are tall, slim, and structurally optimistic. A man across the aisle eats a bacon, egg and cheese on a roll. You watch the bacon, egg and cheese the entire ride. You do not look at the man. The composite card in your pocket has 4 photos on it, and your measurements printed in a column so small it looks like a ransom note. Bust, waist, hip. Height, weight. The weight is approximate. Approximate is doing a lot of work there. Your booker told you to say 1 to 10 if anyone asks. You weigh 106. 110 sounds less alarming. The math works in no direction that helps you. Casting is in a building near the Flatiron. 3rd floor, no elevator. You climb with the portfolio. A woman at a folding table doesn't look up. She points at a row of chairs where 6 other girls sit in identical black leather portfolios on knees posture, like a waiting room at a doctor's office, if the doctor had only one specialty, and that specialty was your cheekbones. You sit. The portfolio opens on your lap. You turn pages slowly so you look like you're reviewing something professional and not like you haven't eaten since the rye crisp at 6 this morning. The casting itself takes 4 minutes. You walk to the tape mark on the floor. You stand with your shoulders back. A photographer's assistant with a Polaroid one-step shoots 2 frames, and a man in a black turtleneck writes a number next to your name on a clipboard. Nobody tells you what the number means. The number means something. The Polaroid develops on the table and the man glances at it with the expression of someone reviewing a utility bill. You are the utility bill. The booker will call by 6 if they want you back. If the phone doesn't ring by 6, the phone won't ring. You learn this in your first week. By the 3rd week, you have stopped looking at the phone at 5:59 with any particular hope and started looking at it the way you look at weather, something that will do what it does regardless of your feelings on the phone. Matter. An editorial casting, say, a 12-page spread for details or the face pays $500 a day and takes 2 days, and the photos will sit in every agency waiting room in New York for the next 18 months. A catalogue casting for a mid-range department store pays $800 for 1 day. No one will ever mention it, and your booker will say, "It's good experience," in a tone that makes clear it is the opposite of good. You take the catalogue job. The catalogue job does not appear in your portfolio. The $500 editorial job does. This is basically an unpaid Goldman Sachs internship versus a paid cashier shift at Target, and you take the unpaid one every time, because the unpaid one is the whole point. A girl named Petra is 2 chairs down, turning her own portfolio pages. She's been in New York 11 weeks, booked 3 editorials, owes the agency $34,000, and is eating an apple in the manner of someone rationing medicine, small bites. Long pauses between bites. The apple is about the size of a tennis ball, and she has been working on it since Houston Street. It will last until she gets back on the train. The apple has earned its place in this day in a way almost nothing else has. You leave the building at noon. The next casting is at 2, in Soho, a different building, a different folding table, another row of chairs. You have 45 minutes. You buy a black coffee from a cart on 23rd Street for 75 cents and stand next to the cart because standing next to the cart is still technically near food. The portfolio hangs from your shoulder. £7. You do this 4 days a week. Some weeks, 5. The bookings come in clusters and then disappear for 10 days and then come back. The agency calls it the rhythm of the industry. The rhythm of the industry has a lot in common with not knowing when you're going to eat next. You get back on the 6 train uptown at 3. The same man or a different man is eating something. You watch it all the way to 33rd Street. You are very good at watching things you don't touch. You sit on a folding chair in a loft on Lower Broadway with 16 other girls who all look approximately like you. The casting director's assistant calls names off a clipboard and the names go in the same order as the composite cards on her desk, which is to say, almost alphabetical and almost not. Nobody speaks. 2 girls are reading. 1 girl is asleep. 1 girl is writing in a small notebook in handwriting too small to read. You sit very still. Stillness is the audition before the audition. The room is quiet, focused, and aggressively still. The room is a converted loft that hasn't committed to being anything in particular. There's a pressed tin ceiling that looks like someone's grandmother approved the renovation and then left. Half the windows face an air shaft. A space heater in the corner runs on the maximum setting and nobody has touched it and nobody will. Because adjusting the thermostat would mean standing up and crossing the room, and crossing the room means being seen out of sequence, and being seen out of sequence means the casting director remembers your face wrong. You don't move. The space heater hisses softly. It has been running like this for years. Let's talk about the composite card. It's not a card. It's a small portfolio folded flat, 4 photographs, 2 sides, your name in a clean sans serif font, and your measurements printed at the bottom in a font size slightly too small for anyone over 40 to read without squinting. The numbers are not quite accurate. Everyone in this room has measurements on their card that reflect what they were at their leanest, or what they claimed to be at their last agency check-in, or what the booker typed in and never verified. Height is accurate. Height is verifiable. Everything below height is, technically, aspirational. Your booker is a woman named Denise who has worked at the agency since 1987 and wears the same two blazers in rotation and calls everyone babe in a tone that carries no warmth and no malice, only efficiency. Last Thursday, she looked at your card, then at you, then at your card again, in the order of a woman comparing a menu photo to the actual dish. She said your hips were running a quarter-inch over. She said it the way a mechanic tells you a tyre is low, not urgent, not cruel, just a thing that needs correcting before you can proceed. The quarter-inch is all you've thought about since. Across from you, a girl in a grey-ribbed tank has her legs crossed at the ankle and her hands folded in her lap like she's waiting for a bus that has never once been late for her. Her cheekbones cast small shadows. Her collarbone is present in the way architectural details are present decorative and load-bearing at the same time. She got here before you, and she'll be called before you, and her composite card is probably on top of the stack, and her measurements are probably accurate, and her booker probably uses a different tone entirely. You study her for 3 seconds. You look away. She doesn't notice. The assistant calls a name. A girl stands, smooths her jeans, walks to the door, and disappears. The door closes without drama. From behind it, nothing. No voices, no camera click, no indication that anything is happening. The room redistributes its silence. You've been waiting 40 minutes. There are 11 girls ahead of you. If each one takes 4 minutes, you're here until late afternoon, which puts you past the second casting in Midtown, which puts the whole day at risk. You ate half a banana on the train. The banana was 2 days old, soft, and had the structural integrity of something that had already decided to become compost. You drank a black coffee at 9. The coffee has opinions about your stomach and is sharing them now, quietly, in intervals. An agency-owned shared apartment on East 28th Street is home to you and 3 other girls, which is basically a college dorm except the RA is a storm booker with a tape measure and the textbooks are agency invoices you owe whether or not you pass. The apartment has 2 beds and 2 air mattresses and a kitchen that functions mostly as a surface for composite cards and cigarettes. You've been in New York 6 weeks. The debt is already $31,000. The debt doesn't wait for you to land a job. The debt came fully formed. The assistant calls another name. Another girl stands and smooths and disappears. The space heater hisses. The girl in the small notebook writes something. The girl who was asleep is still asleep, mouth slightly open, composite card balanced on her knee like a tiny placard at a diplomatic summit. You sit very still. The door opens. The door closes. The room waits. You stand in a small dressing room behind a curtain at a showroom on 7th Avenue, while a fitter zips a sample-sized dress up your back. The dress is a size 2. The dress was designed to fit a size 2. The zipper closes. The fitter exhales audibly. The exhale is a passing grade. If the zipper had not closed, you would not be the girl wearing this dress on the runway in 3 weeks, and you would also not be the girl getting paid for the runway in 3 weeks. The zipper does the math. 3 years ago, the dress would have been a 6. That was the number a 6, maybe an 8. And it fit bodies that ate regular meals and had hips that weren't apologizing for existing. Then the number moved. It moved the way a deadline moves. Quietly, officially, and with no accompanying explanation. By 1994, the sample is a 2. The tape measure confirms this every time. The tape measure has no mercy and no memory of what a 6 felt like. The fitter's name is Margaret. She has a pincushion strapped to her wrist like a very specific piece of jewellery, and she works the seam allowance with 2 fingers the way a bank teller works currency practiced, expressionless, professionally detached from the implications of the transaction. She pinches a ½ inch of fabric at your ribs and marks it with a chalk line. The chalk line is a compliment. It means there's room you haven't filled yet, and the dress approves. The measurements, 34, 23, 34. The numbers are clean, specific, and non-negotiable. Your agency card says 34, 23, 34. Those numbers are not suggestions. They are load-bearing. A ½ inch over on the waist, and Denise flags it at the casting, which you know because Denise flagged it last Tuesday on a girl with a slightly more optimistic lunch. 23 inches is roughly the circumference of a large cantaloupe. You know this because at some point this season you did the comparison, and it was not encouraging, and it was also not inaccurate. The dress goes over your shoulders now. Margaret adjusts the neckline with the gravity of a field surgeon rerouting an artery. You look into the mirror they've angled against the showroom wall full length. No flattering warm light, just the same flat fluorescent that makes everyone look like they're being processed rather than fitted. You look like the photograph. That's the goal. You look like the photograph every booker tapes to the wall above their desk. The one torn from a magazine that shows a girl who looks like she lives on a different set of physical requirements than everyone else on the subway. The agency weighed you on Tuesday. The scale is a standing model, white, bolted to the floor in a small room off the main office with a frosted glass window, basically a Weight Watchers meeting. Except the number going down is the professional outcome, and the number going up ends with a phone call from your booker that starts with, "We need to talk about Milan." The booker does not say lose 5 pounds. The booker says maybe stay away from carbs through the show and then moves on immediately, as though she has said something completely ordinary, which in this building she has. 94 calories in a single apple. You know this the way you know your composite card number and the cross streets of every showroom in the garment district. The information lives in your body now, not as a diet, not as a plan, just as ambient math that runs quietly underneath everything else. A cigarette after the apple. Coffee before the cigarette. The cigarette is doing the work of 3 things it was not designed to do, and it is handling the assignment with characteristic efficiency. 70% of the girls on the call sheet smoke. The other 30% are either new or lying. Margaret steps back. She looks at you the way someone looks at a piece of furniture they've just realised will fit through the door after all. She says, "That'll do." 3 words. Not a celebration. The dress zips. The chalk line holds. You're the girl in the dress. The zipper already told you that. Your booker calls the apartment at 11:14 a.m. on a Tuesday and tells you, in the same tone she might use to confirm a doctor's appointment, that the client wants you down a pound by Friday. The phone is a beige cordless handset with a slightly loose battery cover. You write the deadline on the back of a Chinese takeout menu. The menu is folded, greasy, and convenient. You also write the client's name, the call time, and the address. You do not write down the pound. The pound is implied. The pound is always implied. The phone goes back on the cradle. The cradle is yellow plastic. Her name is Diane. Not your Diane, everyone's Diane. She has a second line that clicks over mid-sentence and she never apologizes for it. The second line is its own colleague, slightly more urgent than you are, always about to say something more important. She speaks in units, pounds, inches, days. She asks how you're eating and doesn't wait for the answer, because the answer isn't information she needs. What she needs is the number on the scale at Friday's go-see, and she needs it smaller than Tuesday's number. She has 3 other girls to call after you. The call takes 4 minutes. A pound is a small, specific, and entirely arbitrary unit of work. A pound is not a pound when you're already at 107. It is 4 days of arithmetic. It is 2 fewer crackers. It is an extra cigarette at noon where lunch used to be. It is standing up a little straighter on the scale and hoping the battery in the digital display is running low. It is a measurement that exists entirely for someone else's convenience. The scale doesn't care. Your hips don't care. The client sitting in an office in Midtown cares very specifically. The go-see is Thursday at 3. You take the 6 train to 51st Street and walk 2 blocks in the February cold, which is actually helpful, because your coat is doing work your body fat no longer is. The waiting room has 4 chairs and 3 other girls, all of you sitting with the particular posture of people who have been told their posture is a professional asset. Nobody speaks. One girl is eating half an orange with surgical focus, section by section, the peel folded into a neat square in her lap. The orange smells extraordinary. You are thinking about the orange for longer than is reasonable. A casting director named Todd comes out, looks at you briefly, and says your agency already submitted your card. He means the composite card, the 4-photo laminated rectangle your agency produced for a fee that came off your advance, which came off a debt you already owed before you'd worked a day. The composite card cost $240. It's basically a trading card, except you owe money for being in the pack. Todd writes something on a clipboard. You can't see what it is. He doesn't say whether you have the job or not. He says your booker will hear by end of day and smiles in a way that carries no information. You put your coat back on. The girl with the orange is already gone. You stop at a bodega on the way back to the subway. There's a CK1 advertisement on the bus shelter across the street, black and white. The face of a girl approximately your age, with cheekbones like architectural details and eyes like she's been awake for 4 days, which, statistically, she may have been. The ad has been on that bus shelter for 6 months. 40 million people have walked past a version of that face. The face does not look like it eats oranges. The phone rings again at 6. Diane says they went another direction. She says it in the same tone as before, which is no tone at all, which is its own kind of tone. She says there's a showroom fitting tomorrow at 9 and a test shoot Friday afternoon, and to make sure you're at the agency by 8:30 for measurements. She clicks over to the second line. You hang up the beige handset. The battery cover shifts slightly. You find the takeout menu. You cross out the client's name. The pound is still there, uncrossed. Friday's fitting will have its own opinions about the pound. You arrive at a studio on the 5th floor of a converted warehouse in Tribeca at 7:50 a.m. for an 8 a.m. call. The studio is one large room painted matte white with a cyclorama at one end and a craft services table at the other. You sign in on a clipboard at the door. You write your name, your agency, and the time. You do not write what you weigh. That information has already been faxed over with your contract, which is to say, before you arrived, the studio already knew. The craft services table has a bowl of fruit, a coffee urn, and a flat box of crackers. The fruit is decorative. You know this because nobody is touching it, and the crackers have been arranged in a fan shape, which is what happens to food that is staging an appearance rather than offering a meal. A PA named Marcus refills the coffee urn without being asked. He has been doing this since 6. He will do it until they wrap. The urn is the only thing on the table anyone treats with real urgency. The light is the work. The light is consistent, soft, and unforgiving. The windows face north, which is the professional choice. No direct sun, no shadows that shift between shots, just a flat, grey ambient glow that the photographer can push around at will. There are also 4 studio strobes on stands, 2 on either side of the set, and a medium format Hasselblad on a tripod that clicks like something bureaucratic and important. Every frame is a decision. Every click costs money. The camera doesn't have opinions about this, it just clicks. Hair and makeup is in a back corner sectioned off with a rolling rack of clothes and a folding screen that wobbles every time someone moves past it. You sit in the chair. A woman named Greta pins a section of your hair with the seriousness of someone diffusing something. She doesn't ask how you slept. She is already looking at the bones in your face, the way a carpenter looks at a wall before measuring, assessing, not admiring. The foundation goes on in layers. You count them. The clothes arrive on a garment rack, bagged in plastic with tags attached. Each tag lists the size and notes in pencil, the shoot date, the magazine, and in some cases, a name. Your name is on 2 of the tags. This is either a good sign or a normal one, and you won't know which until later. The sample sizes run 0 and 2. There's a pair of jeans on the rack that measures 23 inches at the waist. You've seen wider belts. By 8:15, the photographer is in. His name isn't announced. He sets down a bag, adjusts one of the strobes an inch to the left, looks at the cyclorama, and nods at something no one else can see. He doesn't speak to you yet. You're not on set yet. Right now, you're in the chair getting your face built, and until Greta is finished, you're somewhere between a person and a surface. The distinction will blur further once the lights are on. The smell in the room is aquanet, coffee, and cigarette smoke absorbed into every soft surface over what appears to be several decades of bookings. The folding screen has taken on a personality from it. So has the rolling rack. A stylist lights a cigarette near the window and holds it outside, which is a rule that nobody wrote down and everyone follows. The smoke comes back in anyway. The smoke always comes back in. You have eaten, technically, a piece of fruit from a bag in your tote, standing on the F-train platform at Canal Street at 7:40 in the morning, while a man in a fleece vest read the Post over your shoulder. That is breakfast. The coffee here counts as the second item. The cigarette, if you have one before noon, is the third. This is not a diet, it's a schedule. You sit in a director's chair in front of a folding table covered in brushes and pencils and small open palettes for 2 hours and 40 minutes while a hair and makeup team works on you. The chair is made of canvas and aluminum. You are not allowed to move your face. You are allowed to move your eyes if asked. You hold a Diet Coke in your left hand because somebody handed it to you when you sat down. You do not drink it. The Diet Coke is a prop. The prop is for the photographer. The makeup artist's name is Paolo. Paolo has opinion. He has opinions about your pores, your brow arch, your under-eye situation, and what he describes as the wrong kind of pale, which is different from the right kind of pale. The right kind of pale is architectural. The wrong kind of pale is what your face does on its own. He corrects this with a matte foundation applied in 3 passes, each layer slightly cooler in tone than the last, until the result looks less like skin and more like something a sculptor would call a first draft. Paolo steps back. He tilts his head. He does not compliment you. The hair side takes longer. Your hair has been divided into sections, wrapped in papers, and set with product whose name you didn't catch, and whose smell you'll still be finding on your pillow in 4 days. Aquanet goes on in 2 directions. The can is mostly empty by the time the second pass is done, which is not unusual. There are 6 backup cans on the table. The industry has a position on Aquanet. The position is more. Right now you have been made into something specific, polished, and slightly inhuman that the camera will read as effortless. That is the professional term. Effortless. It takes 2 hours and 40 minutes and a team of 3 and approximately 1 full can of hairspray to achieve effortless. Paolo adds a last pencil stroke under your left eye and steps back again. He says, "Good." This is the first thing he has said to you that was not a question about your pores. The Diet Coke has gone warm. You still don't drink it. You won't drink it. The Diet Coke goes back on the table when you stand and nobody mentions it again, which is a perfectly normal thing that happens every single day in this room. Now you stand in front of a mirror that runs the full length of the table. You look at yourself for approximately 3 seconds. Then you look away, because looking too long at the foundation version of your face does something to your relationship with the non-foundation version, and you've learned to keep that transaction short. One of the assistants hands you a small handheld fan. The fan is for the walk from makeup to set, which is 20 feet, because the lights are already on and the lights are already hot and Paolo's work does not survive sweat. Marcus is the garment stylist. Marcus carries the dress into the room on a padded hanger as though it is a small animal that startles easily. He holds it at arm's length. He does not make eye contact with you. He makes eye contact with the dress. The dress is pale grey silk, bias cut, and tagged at the collar with your name and your measurements in permanent marker. The measurements are listed to a 1/4 inch. The tag is not a label. The tag is a contract. You step into it. Marcus zips. He pauses at the hip. He zips the remaining 2 inches with the careful technique of someone who has been here before and knows exactly how much give there isn't. The fabric settles. The dress has an opinion about your ribcage. Its opinion is architectural. Paolo would approve. Somebody refreshes your lip colour. Somebody else adjusts the fan angle. The Hasselblad clicks twice in the background, a test shot, nothing official, just the camera warming up its own opinion of the light. You stand still in the 20-foot walk between the makeup table and the cyclorama, held in pale grey silk, smelling of Aquanet and theatrical-grade matte, holding a fresh Diet Coke that somebody has just handed you. You don't drink it. You already know what it's for. You stand on a piece of grey, seamless paper while a photographer behind a tripod-mounted Hasselblad clicks the shutter exactly the same way 900 times in 4 hours. The medium-format camera makes a precise mechanical clack each time, like a stapler with ambitions. The strobes recycle with a low hum between shots. You shift your hip a 1/4 inch. You tilt your chin a 1/4 inch. The photographer does not tell you to do these things. He stops moving when you have done them, and you have learned to read the stopping. The Hasselblad holds 12 frames per roll of 120 film. 12 clicks, then a pause while the assistant loads a new back. The assistant's name is Marco, and he moves with the practiced urgency of someone who has been loading film backs since before you were legally allowed to work. He does not look at you. He loads. He hands the back off. He steps back into the exact position he was in before, like a chess piece returning to its square. Before a shoot, you eat 1 piece of fruit, generally. Half a banana or a small apple, depending on how the week has been going. A black coffee from the bodega on the corner, carried in a paper cup with a plastic lid that burns your fingers slightly. That's breakfast. That's also lunch, in the sense that there won't be a separate lunch. On set, there is a craft services table with crackers, cheese, and small chocolate bars. The crackers are allowed. The cheese is considered. The chocolate bars watch you from across the room for 4 hours and nothing happens. The photographer's name is Glenn, and he does not say much. He says good 3 or 4 times across the morning in a tone that could also mean acceptable. He says turn, without specifying which direction, and you have understood by the second roll that he means slightly right. Glenn has an assistant who holds a reflector, a second assistant who manages the Polaroids, and a stylist hovering at the edge of the frame with a lint roller that she deploys between every third shot. The lint roller has been on 17 shoots this month. It has strong opinions about silk. At some point around the second hour, your feet begin to register a complaint. The shoes are a European 37.5, which is your size, correctly, but they've been resold for a previous job, and the heel sits a millimetre off. The shoes have not mentioned this before now. They mention it now. You do not shift your weight because shifting your weight is visible in the frame and visible is wrong, so the foot files its complaint and you acknowledge it internally and continue. The Polaroids come out flat and overexposed under the assistant's hands, and Glenn tips them at an angle to check shadow depth. He doesn't say what he sees. He puts the Polaroid down on the table next to 11 other Polaroids. The table looks like evidence. By the third hour, the strobes have raised the temperature in the studio to something approaching the Bryant Park tents in February, which is to say a sealed tent in winter that somehow achieves the ambient warmth of a laundromat on a Tuesday. The matte foundation Paolo applied this morning 3 passes, you remember, with the small brushes holding. This is what 3-pass matte foundation is for. You are producing no visible evidence of having a body temperature. Glenn says turn. You turn slightly right. The Hasselblad clicks, Marco loads, the lint roller appears. The strobes hum. This is the job. The job has a rhythm, and the rhythm is click, hum, load, lint, repeat. You've been doing this long enough that your body runs the rhythm on its own while the rest of you is somewhere quieter, counting nothing in particular. At 4 hours, Glenn says, I think we have it, without looking up from the Polaroid table. That's a wrap. Not announced. Just stated. The way you'd note that the mail had arrived. Marco begins breaking down the film backs with the same neutral efficiency. The stylist reaches for the bias-cut grey silk with both hands before you've fully stopped moving. The seamless paper has a small crease in it where you shifted your hip, sometime in the second hour. Nobody put it there on purpose. It just happened, the way most things happen on a shoot, gradually, without comment, and only visible afterward. You smoke Marlboro Lights, plural, throughout the working day in quantities that would alarm a cardiologist in any other context, but here are considered occupational PPE. The hair and makeup team smokes. The stylist smokes. The photographer's first assistant smokes. The lighting director, who has been at this since 1979, smokes a brand of unfiltered French cigarettes nobody else has ever seen. There are ashtrays on the craft services table next to the bottled water. The bottled water is for the styling team. The cigarettes are for everyone. A 1,996 women's wear daily survey put the smoking rate among working fashion models above 70%. The general female population at the same age was sitting around 17. Nobody in the industry reads that number and adjusts their behavior. It's filed somewhere next to the calorie research. The cigarette is small, portable, and load-bearing. The cigarette is not social. The cigarette is functional appetite suppression, hand occupation, a reason to step outside between setups when the studio gets close, and the lighting director's French cigarettes have formed their own weather system near the ceiling. You light one before you eat anything in the morning. You light one instead of eating anything at noon. By mid-afternoon it has become, nutritionally speaking, a meal. The cigarette knows this. It does not comment. Sophie, the hair assistant, smokes American spirits with the focused deliberateness of someone doing a job. She smokes with one hand and holds a round brush with the other, which is a skill not covered in cosmetology school. She taps ash into a styrofoam cup she's been carrying since Nina met her. The cup has travelled to 3 different rooms. She's attached to it. The math on a working day is roughly this. 1 piece of fruit in the morning, black coffee without anything in it, and somewhere between 8 and 12 cigarettes depending on how long the setup takes. This adds up to somewhere between 300 and 500 calories, which is what a medium-sized house cat eats. If the cat were also trying to fit into a size 2 Helmut Lang column dress and had a check-in at Ford on Thursday, the cigarettes round out the day. They are the snack and the appetizer and the dessert, performing triple duty with a single matchbook. Cocaine was doing adjacent work on the appetite front, though it moved in different rooms at different hours, more of an evening situation, limelight and tunnel, the booths near the back where the art directors stood in clusters. The cigarettes were the daytime version. Less dramatic. More deniable. You could smoke in the studio, in the car, in the lobby of the agency. You could not, technically, do the other thing in the lobby of the agency, though the lobby of the agency was not always strictly supervised. Agency bookers smoked at their desks. This is worth noting because the same desk had the scale nearby, and the measurement card in the folder and the note about your hip measurement from last Thursday, and the cigarettes were lit through all of it. A booker named Diane sits across from you with a Newport between two fingers and reads your card the way a bank manager reads a credit report. She doesn't look up when she says the number needs to come down. She takes a drag. She moves on to the next card. The Newport continues burning regardless of what you decide to do with the information. The cigarette is just what you do with your hands when your hands are not otherwise occupied, and you have decided not to eat the thing on the craft services table that Marco keeps pointing at, hopefully. Marco points at the craft services table again on your way out. There is a bowl of mixed nuts. You light another Marlboro Light. Both of you know this dance too well. You walk past the catering table 4 times during the shoot. The catering table at any New York editorial production in 1995 carries the same fixed inventory. A tray of bagels, a tray of cream cheese, a fruit platter, a coffee urn, a kettle, 4 kinds of tea, and a Tupperware of M&Ms that the photographer's assistant refills from a Costco bag in the supply closet. You take a cup of black coffee. The coffee is black, lukewarm, and acceptable. You do not take a bagel. You walk back to your mark. The bagels are for the crew. Before the car service picked you up at 6, you had 3 things. Black coffee, half a cigarette, and half a banana and another black coffee. The banana was on your approved list. There is an approved list. Your booker at the agency didn't hand it to you with that name, but you assembled it over 18 months from what she said and didn't say, what the stylist mentioned, what the other girls in the model apartment ate or pretended to eat. The list is short. The list has 5 items on it. None of them are bagels. The daily intake, documented by nutritionists studying working models in this period, runs somewhere between 500 and 800 calories. The medically recommended amount for a young woman is 2,000 to 2,500. The gap between those 2 numbers is a full meal, plus dessert, plus breakfast, plus the kind of afternoon snack a normal person eats standing in front of an open refrigerator without thinking about it. You are not doing that. You have not done that in a while. A stylist named Marcus refolds a silk shirt near the catering table and picks up a single grape from the fruit platter. He eats it without pausing. He doesn't notice he ate it. That is the difference between Marcus and you right now. Marcus ate a grape. You watch Marcus eat a grape. The fruit platter is technically available to everyone. It's there. It's physical. Nobody's told you explicitly that it isn't yours. And yet the platter has developed, over the course of a 1,995 editorial morning, the social energy of something behind velvet rope. You can look. The looking is fine. The grapes are fine. They're just not for you in the same way that the coffee is for you, because the coffee has no calories and the grapes have 11 each and you counted. Of course, this is also the year the crew eats Thai food from a delivery bag at the 1 o'clock break, and you sit with your coffee and a cigarette while the smell of pad CEU moves through the room like it has somewhere to be. The smell is present. Not subtle, not apologetic, just loudly, unhelpfully there. By mid-afternoon, you've been on your feet for 7 hours under lights that push the temperature backstage to somewhere around 90 degrees. Your foundation is being touched up for the 4th time. A makeup artist named Renee blots your forehead with a triangle sponge and says nothing, which means everything is fine. And you know this because when something is not fine, Renee says, "Hold on," and calls for the lead artist. Renee does not say, "Hold on." You are fine. You are also, quietly, dizzy in the way that has become so routine. You've stopped cataloguing it as a symptom and started cataloguing it as a condition, the way you'd catalogue having brown hair. The M and Ms are the most aggressive item on the table. The Tupperware sits open all day, lid off, small bright ovals in a pile. each one about 3 calories, each one meaningless in isolation. The photographer's assistant refills it at 11 and again at 2. Nobody asked him to. He just does it. He does it cheerfully. The M and M's are thriving. You take your 5th black coffee of the day and go back to your mark. The Hasselblad clicks. The catering table stays where it is, fully stocked, radiating a kind of ambient cheerfulness you have chosen not to participate in. You'll eat something at dinner, something small, something on the list. You learn within 3 months of moving to New York that the bathroom at every studio above Houston Street has a small mirrored shelf above the sink that exists for a specific second purpose, and that the second purpose is openly understood by everyone in the building, including the assistant who keeps the toilet paper stocked. Nobody discusses it. Nobody negotiates it. You walk in, you lock the door, you handle whatever you handle in there. You wash your hands, you return to set. The shoot continues exactly as it would have. Corinne, the first assistant, has a system. She taps 3 times before she tries the handle, not to be polite. To give you a fair warning, she's worked 3 studios in the past year and she taps the same number of times at all of them, which tells you this is policy rather than personality. She doesn't look up when you pass her on the way back. You don't make eye contact. The Hasselblad clicks again. Everyone returns to the shape of the afternoon. Corinne taps 3 times on the bathroom door at 11:40 a meter. You unlock it. She steps back without making eye contact. You return to your mark. The Hasselblad is already on its tripod waiting. The substance on the shelf above the sink is appetite flat, fatigue flat, body flat. You are not hungry on it. You are not tired on it. You are very, very thin on it, and the industry reads thin and tireless as employable. Cigarettes do half the same job for 1/10 of the price. And the cigarettes are doing the daytime work that the shelf above the sink does on a fitting day. The social circuit that moves this along runs through 3 clubs in West Chelsea, Twilo, The Tunnel and The Limelight, where photographers, editors, bookers, and the models they work with occupy the same rooms 3 nights a week. The geography is cozy. The Limelight in particular is a converted Episcopal church on 6th Avenue, which means at some point someone decided to put a nightclub inside a church, and that person was right. The coat check is where acquaintances become useful contacts. The second floor is where useful contacts become something else. By midnight on any given Tuesday, at least 4 people you'll see at a casting on Thursday are in this building. The cocaine is not discreet. It's not meant to be. Nobody keeps clean records on the rate of use. Corinne knows who knocks for what, but Corinne is not in HR. Marcus, the British GQ photographer in the corner with the Polaroid, has shot here 12 times this year and has watched approximately every iteration of the room. He nods at the Hasselblad. The Hasselblad clicks. The afternoon continues. You're earning on a good month somewhere between $500 a day on an editorial spread and considerably more on commercial work. The commercial work pays the rent. The editorial work builds the book. The cocaine costs what it costs, which is less than dinner and more than breakfast, and you're not eating dinner anyway. The math is not complicated. It isn't good math, just functional. The industry doesn't call this a drug problem. The industry calls it a lifestyle. The parts are quiet, polished, and load-bearing. Corinne taps 3 times on the bathroom door again at 2:15. You unlock it. The shoot continues. You are told by your agency, repeatedly and with patience, that you have a choice to make about what kind of model you intend to be. The choice is technically yours. The choice is technically about your career. The choice has, in practice, already been made by whichever fashion editor first put you in a magazine, and your agency is now informing you of the decision so you can act as though you participated in it. Editorial means French Vogue. Editorial means $500 a day. Editorial means you cannot afford to eat. Let's talk about the math. French Vogue pays $500 a day. A 12-page editorial spread takes 2 days to shoot, sometimes 3. You net $1,000, maybe $1,500, against which the agency takes 15 to 20%. The agency also applies a portion to your running debt, the composite cards, the test shoots, the model apartment, the flight they booked you to Paris when you were 16 without asking whether you had a passport. The debt is somewhere between $20,000 and $50,000 depending on how long you've been a client and how many times your booker decided you needed a new portfolio. The debt does not pause while you shoot. It has a concept of outstanding balance, and that concept is very well developed. Commercial pays more. A catalogue shoot for a mid-range department store, the kind whose bags you wouldn't be caught dead carrying, pays $2,000 a day, sometimes $3,000. A TV spot pays more than that. You could clear your debt in 6 months shooting knitwear for a mall brand in New Jersey. Your booker mentions this exactly once, in the same tone a doctor uses when describing a procedure they don't personally recommend. The prestige hierarchy is not written anywhere. It doesn't have to be. Every working model in New York in 1994 knows that French Vogue is unpayable and therefore correct, and that the Macy's catalogue is solvent and therefore embarrassing. Your booker at Ford is Margot. Margot wears the same grey turtleneck every Friday and has never once raised her voice. On her desk is a small brass paperweight shaped like a sleeping cat, which she turns a quarter rotation clockwise every time she says something she wants you to remember. You do editorial. Quarter rotation. You build the book. Quarter rotation. The commercial work, she says, will still be there. Quarter rotation. The paperweight has been on this desk since 1986. The cat sleeps through all of it. The photographers who shoot editorial are not interchangeable with the photographers who shoot commercial. Glenn Lutchford shoots editorial. Jürgen Teller shoots editorial. These are names your booker says the way other people say Scorsese or Kubrick, as though the correct response is to nod slowly and feel honoured by the association. The commercial photographers have names too. Nobody says them the same way. The commercial photographers show up on time, finish on schedule, and send you a check that clears. The editorial photographers show up when inspiration arrives, which is a scheduling concept with extremely loose parameters. You are eating a single plum over the sink at 11 in the morning and calling it lunch. Margot taps the desk about a lot of things. Not about that. The editorial spread runs in the magazine. Your face is on a page between a perfume advertisement and a 5,000-word piece about a film director nobody outside Paris has heard of yet. The magazine is glossy and heavy, and smells like the 17 perfume inserts folded into its first 40 pages. You hold a copy in the model apartment in Murray Hill while the girl in the next bed asks if you got paid yet. You did. You got paid. The debt is $38,000. The debt found this very encouraging. Your agency hands you an itemized statement at the end of your second month. The statement is printed on green and white tractor feed paper and lists, in 3 columns, the cost of your test shoots, your composite cards, your portfolio book, your share of the apartment rent, your share of the apartment phone bill, your messengered headshots, and a category called miscellaneous that runs to $412. The total is $18,307. You have earned, in the same 2 months, $600. The difference is your balance. The balance doesn't announce itself dramatically. It just sits at the bottom of the page in a slightly bolder font, the way a restaurant bill sits in a leather folder politely, patiently, radiating the understanding that someone at this table is going to cover it. That someone is you. The agency has helpfully noted that interest begins accruing at the 90-day mark. You've been here 62 days. The composite card is a glossy 4x6 piece of cardstock with your name, your measurements, and 4 photographs. It costs $160 to produce. The agency ordered $500. You did not order $500. The agency sent them, on your behalf, to casting directors and magazine editors you've never met, in a padded envelope charged to your account. The composite card is your business card. You are also paying for it. In agency accounting, this is considered a service. A booker named Renata walks you through the statement with the brisk efficiency of someone explaining a lease renewal. She points to the portfolio line, $4,200, and mentions that the photographer was very good, very editorial, very sought after, and that the investment will pay for itself. She says investment the way someone selling a timeshare says opportunity. Her pen taps the miscellaneous line once. She doesn't explain it further. The pen moves on. The apartment runs $700 a month. Your share. You have 3 roommates, all of them also on green and white tractor feed paper, all of them also in the second month, none of them discussing the balance openly, because discussing the balance openly would be the kind of thing a girl does right before she flies home to wherever she came from. The apartment is in Murray Hill. It has 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen where 4 people try not to make eye contact over their respective single pieces of fruit. The refrigerator contains yogurt, diet, soda, cigarettes placed on the top shelf for reasons no one explains, and a jar of peanut butter that belongs to everyone and no one. Renata is the lender. Renata is also, by way of agency hierarchy, your employer, your landlord, and the person who decides whether you work enough castings to chip away at the balance. The opinions arrive on Wednesdays in the form of a different clipboard and a different person asking how the castings went and whether you've thought about the hip measurement. Renata slides the statement back across the desk. She says the number isn't alarming. Some girls carry 40, 50,000 before their first cover. She says it like a reassurance. It lands like the opposite. You sign the acknowledgement line. You date it. The acknowledgement is brief, polite, and total. Renata caps the pen and slides it into a pencil cup on her desk that has a Yves Saint Laurent ad clipped to the side. The pencil cup has been there longer than you have. You travel to Bournemouth on a Friday morning by National Express coach to shoot for 2 days in a borrowed bedsit with a photographer who has explicitly told your agency she will not be hiring a hairstylist, a makeup artist, a lighting director, or a craft services person. She has hired you in a roll of medium format film. The bedsit has a single window, a single radiator, a kitchenette, and a bed without sheets. You arrive at 2:30. The available light is what the available light is. Corinne Day doesn't greet you at the door so much as open it and step back. She's 31. She has a camera bag over one shoulder and a cup of tea she isn't offering to share. The bedsit smells like damp plaster, and the specific brand of cold that English seaside towns maintain even in summer as a point of principle. There are no stands, no umbrellas, no reflector cards. Whatever the window gives her is what she'll work with, and what the window gives her today is approximately the light output of a medium-sized candle positioned in another room. The headdress is dyed, battered, and unmistakable. You've brought a feathered headdress in your bag because Corinne asked you to, and you're not entirely sure what a feathered headdress has to do with anything, but you packed it. You've also brought yourself all 5 feet 7 inches of you, 107 pounds, ribs that surface when you breathe, collarbones that announce themselves. Corinne Day is specifically interested in those last 2 details. She wants exactly what the Vogue studios explicitly do not want. She wants you looking like you live here. The headdress goes on. You're in underwear because she's asked you to be in underwear. The radiator is on, which means the bedsit is hovering somewhere between cold and not quite cold, which in practice means you're both cold and inexplicably damp from the radiator steam. Corinne adjusts the headdress. She tilts your chin. She walks back to the window and holds a light meter up like she's checking the weather, and the weather has failed to impress her. Then she picks up the Hasselblad. The shutter clicks. It sounds very small in a room this size. She doesn't tell you what she's getting. This is where the session lives, in the gap between what she's looking at and what she says about it, which is nothing. Most photographers narrate. They say yes, good, give me that, hold it, turn. Corinne shoots the way your nan watches television, present, evaluating, not sharing her conclusions. You hold the position. The window light shifts by maybe 3 degrees as a cloud passes. She shoots that too. This is, by any reasonable accounting, a very strange afternoon. You're 19. You're in a borrowed bedsit in Bournemouth, in a feathered headdress. Across town there are shoots happening right now with lighting directors and catering tables and photographers who've brought assistants. Those shoots will appear in the back sections of magazines, the fragrance and department store pages, and they will pay 3 times what this pays. This shoot will run on the cover of The Face. You don't know that yet. The headdress doesn't know that either. It's just sitting on your head, doing its best. A booker named Marcus back at Storm in London has penciled this into your week with the notation editorial important. He wrote important in the same handwriting he uses when he's not entirely sure something is important but would like it to. Become so. The debt from the composite cards and the portfolio and the East Village apartment that you technically don't live in anymore is still on the statement Renata gave you. This shoot pays £300 for 2 days. The debt is not concerned with this information. By Saturday afternoon, you've shot in the headdress, out of the headdress, standing, sitting, lying on the bed with no sheets, and next to the kitchenette in a way that makes a kitchenette look like a considered aesthetic choice rather than a kitchenette. Corinne makes tea at some point. She does not offer you one. She adjusts the feathers, reloads the Hasselblad, and goes back to the window. The light is doing something different at this hour. She's happy about the light. You can tell she's happy about the light because she stops frowning slightly and begins frowning less slightly. Outside, the English Channel is being grey and horizontal, which is all it ever does. You go to a casting on West 39th Street that the booker has described as significant in a tone she uses for exactly one kind of job. The casting is for Calvin Klein, which, in 1995, is the most commercially powerful single client in American fashion, and which books models for advertising campaigns that will appear on bus shelters in every American city of more than 300,000 people. You wear jeans, a white tank top, no makeup. You bring your portfolio, you bring nothing else. The casting room is on the 8th floor. The elevator is slow, you count floors. On the way up, a girl gets in on the 4th floor wearing the exact same outfit, jeans, white tank top, no makeup. You don't acknowledge this. She doesn't either. The elevator doors open, and you both walk into the same waiting area and sit in chairs that are 3 feet apart. There are 11 other girls wearing jeans and white tank tops. Nobody brought makeup. The whole room looks like a casting call for the same very specific ghost. Greg, the casting director, has a clipboard and speaks in numbers. Greg is patient, professional, and entirely transactional. Greg wants hollow cheeks, a collarbone you could rest a pencil on, and a waist that photographs at 23 inches and reads as 20 on film. The sample garments on the rack are size 2, where agency requirements landed in 1994 and have stayed. Greg hands you a pair of jeans. The jeans have no give. They are meant to be slightly too small for anyone who has recently eaten anything. Greg walks down the row of chairs and looks at you the way a structural engineer looks at a building, not unkindly, but with the specific attention of someone calculating load-bearing capacity. He stops at each girl for about 15 seconds. A casting assistant, Tanya, hands each of you a card and asks you to write your measurements in the blanks. Bust, waist, hip, height, weight. Tanya holds the pen out with the posture of someone who has done this 8,000 times and has one feeling left about it, which she saves for the commute home. The card is the same size as a recipe card. It contains your entire professional identity. You write the numbers carefully because the numbers are the portfolio here. The photographs are secondary to what the numbers say underneath them. If your waist has moved even half an inch since your composite card was printed, you'll know before you leave the room. Greg doesn't measure you with a tape. He doesn't need to. He can read a waist the way a piano tuner reads a note. He's been doing this since 1989. Now, the campaign you're up for is not the Obsession campaign that was 1,994, and it was shot by Mario Sorrenti on a personal vacation that Calvin Klein arranged and sent him on with Kate Moss, who was Mario's girlfriend at the time, which is basically the most expensive vacation in advertising history, paid for by a cologne budget. The campaign you're reading for today is something new, something that will go on billboards. The brief, which nobody shows you, but which you'll piece together from what Greg says and doesn't say, involves a basement and wood paneling and very young-looking faces. Greg uses the word raw twice. Greg does not define raw. Greg does not need to. Backstage at the Bryant Park tents the week before, the temperature under the lighting rigs hit 90 degrees while you stood in full makeup for 40 minutes. A stylist adjusted a seam. The heat was specific, not the ambient heat of a room, but the targeted heat of something deciding to cook you from above. Your foundation moved. Your hair, which had been set for 40 minutes, began returning to its original opinions. None of this appeared in the photographs. In the photographs you looked cool and slightly bored, which is the goal. The photographs always lie in the same direction. You wait in the casting room for 40 minutes. The waiting is silent, focused, and structurally identical to every other casting waiting room in Manhattan. A girl in the corner eats a single cracker very slowly, the way people eat when they're rationing and don't want anyone to notice they're rationing. Nobody says anything. Greg comes back out and calls 3 names. Yours is one of them. You stand up. You leave your portfolio on the chair. You don't pick up the cracker wrapper the other girl left behind, but you think about it, and the thinking about it takes the whole elevator ride down. You share a single bathroom with 3 roommates and a bathroom scale that lives on the tile floor between the toilet and the bathtub. The scale is communal in the same sense that the bath mat is communal, which is to say everyone uses it and nobody owns it. You weigh yourself before your shower. The girl from Dusseldorf weighs herself before her shower. The girl from outside Tampa weighs herself before her shower. by 7:30 am. The scale has had 4 data points entered into it. None of them are spoken aloud. The apartment is in Murray Hill, which in 1995 is not yet fashionable enough to be unfashionable, and is instead just a beige block of corridors and buzzing overhead lights that your agency picked, specifically because the lease is in their name and the monthly rent comes off your advance. You owe them $23,000. The apartment is part of that number. The composite cards are part of that number. The Polaroids from your first go-see are part of that number. The number doesn't announce itself when you step through the door, but it is present in the apartment the way drafts are present. You don't see it, but you feel it in the corners. The kitchen has 4 shelves. The shelves are narrow, labelled, and policed. 1 shelf per girl, which sounds fair until you look at the shelves and understand that fair is doing a lot of work in that sentence. The girl from Dusseldorf keeps black coffee and a jar of almond butter that she guards with the quiet ferocity of a very thin diplomat. The girl from Tampa has a sleeve of rice cakes and 2 diet sodas standing upright like they're waiting for news. Your shelf has a piece of fruit, 1 peach or 1 apple, rotating by what was on sale at the Associated on 3rd Avenue, and a box of crackers that has been open long enough to go slightly soft. The 4th shelf belongs to Mireille, who arrived 3 weeks ago from Lyon and keeps nothing on her shelf at all, which is either impressive willpower or a very bad sign. The refrigerator hums. It does not judge. It simply keeps the almond butter at a consistent 40 degrees and minds its business. Breakfast is the piece of fruit, or the crackers, or the black coffee, or some combination of these things that adds up to whatever your body decides to do with 400 calories and a commute to Midtown. The nutritionists who will eventually write about this era will describe 500 to 800 calories as the working floor. Some days you are below the floor. The floor doesn't notify you of this. You light a cigarette on the way to the subway because cigarettes are the 5th food group. The lighter is from a bodega on Lex. The lighter is purple, has somebody else's name on it in marker, and works on the 3rd strike. Sophie, the girl from Dusseldorf, has a weekly agency check-in on Thursdays. She comes back from the Thursday appointments quieter than she left. Not upset, exactly. Quieter in the specific way of someone who has been handed a number and told to make it smaller by a date. The booker writes the target weight on a card. The card goes into a file. Sophie does not discuss the card. She finishes the almond butter by Saturday and replaces it by Sunday, and you have never once seen her eat anything directly from the jar. She uses a knife, even in the apartment, even at 7 in the morning with no one watching except the refrigerator, which is not watching. The scale on the bathroom floor is a Taylor brand analog dial scale, the kind where the needle swings and settles on a number that you have to read while standing still enough not to disturb it. It is not a precise instrument. It is, however, the most authoritative object in the apartment. By 8 a.m., it has been consulted, processed, and filed away in 4 separate internal ledgers, and no one has said a word about any of it. You step off. The needle swings back to 0. The needle has been swinging back to 0 since 1991, with the patient professional indifference of an old union member who has seen everything and has very few opinions left. The bathroom is yours for the next 10 minutes, which is the precise window between Sophie leaving for her go-see and Mireille getting up, and you have learned to work quickly. You stand outside Twilo on West 27th Street at 11:45 p.m. on a Thursday in a line that is not really a line. The line is not a line. The line is a published guest list with shoes on. The doorman knows the agency. The agency has called ahead. You are wearing a slip dress, a leather jacket that belongs to your roommate, and shoes that fit poorly because they are from a casting 2 days earlier and you never returned them. The doorman lifts the rope. You walk inside without breaking your stride. Behind you, the line that is not a line begins to negotiate its way forward. The inside of Twilo is very loud and very dark and smells like dry ice and someone's ambition. The main room has a ceiling that goes up far enough that you stop being able to see it, and a sound system that a small municipality could hear from the highway. This is not a place where people come to talk. It is a place where people come to be seen not talking, which is a slightly different thing. You find the corner your agency uses. The corner knows you back. Who's here mostly? Photographers, bookers, a few junior editors from magazines you've done unpaid test shoots for, a casting director named Paul who has shaken your hand at 3 different go-sees and each time has introduced himself as if for the first time. Paul is holding a bottle of water with the focused devotion of a man who needs something to hold. He raises it in your direction. You nod. This is a professional relationship. A photographer named Marcus is in the corner with a Polaroid camera hanging around his neck like a lanyard. He's been shooting for British GQ for 2 years and has strong opinions about grain. He takes a Polaroid of you without asking, shakes it, and slides it into his jacket pocket without looking at it. You don't ask about it. You both understand this is documentation, not flattery. The Polaroid has joined a collection. You are somewhere in that collection now, slightly blurry, slightly overexposed, in a jacket that isn't yours. The cocaine is not hidden. That's the first thing you notice when you started coming to places like this, and it stopped being the first thing you noticed after about 2 weeks. Now it's just part of the furniture, like the banquette seating and the promotional drink tickets that always have a small asterisk. A girl from your agency, Lieselot, from Hamburg, who has a contract with Donna Karan and smokes Marlboro Reds with the practiced boredom of someone who began smoking entirely for professional reasons, is talking to a man in a blazer near the second bar. She catches your eye. She tips her chin upward once. You tip yours back. Bilateral recognition. The whole thing takes less than a second and contains several full sentences. You are not drinking. You are not drinking because of the calories, or you are. But that is not the story you are telling yourself tonight. You are holding a glass of soda water with a lime wedge that has been in the glass long enough to go slightly soft. The lime has given up. You understand the lime. Lieselot taps her glass against yours without comment. She is poised, polished, and bored. She is talking now to a man in a blazer who has just slipped a business card into her palm with the practiced motion of someone for whom the gesture is a kind of native language. Lieselot slides the card into her pocket. She doesn't look at it. She will look at it tomorrow, on the way to a go-see, on the train, and decide whether the name on the card is worth a phone call. The decision will take less than 4 seconds. Most of these decisions take less than 4 seconds. The go-see has a scale, the club does not. The business runs through both rooms. Somewhere after 1 a.m. A DJ transitions the room into something louder and the floor, which was already full, gets fuller. You are still holding the soda water. The lime is definitively gone now. You have a casting at 9 in the morning for a shampoo campaign that pays enough to cover 6 weeks of the agency debt, and you will not get it, because shampoo campaigns require a different kind of face, a face that reads as healthy from a distance, and that is a different skill set entirely. But you'll go. You always go. The agency wants you to go. The Target weight card in your jacket pocket, the one Sophie came home with on Thursday. Not yours, but close enough, wants you to go too. Everything wants you somewhere at 9 a.m. You finish the soda water. You stay another hour. The room does not care what time it is, and for a little while, neither do you. Your mother calls the apartment on Sunday afternoon at the time she has decided is the right time to call you. She uses a calling card that gives her 23 minutes for $3. She asks how the week was. You tell her. She asks if you are eating. You tell her you are eating. She asks what you are eating. You tell her about a dinner that did not happen. The conversation proceeds. Both of you have rehearsed your roles separately over the same 48 months. She is calling from a kitchen that smells like something baking. You are in a kitchen that smells like the previous tenant. You have 3 roommates, all of whom are also not eating the dinners they describe to their own mothers on Sunday afternoons. The apartment is technically a 2-bedroom. The agency has a word for it. The word is accommodation. You owe the agency $11,000 for it so far. The debt arrives before you do. The debt is patient, professional, and well organized. The composite card was printed before you booked a job. The portfolio was shot before anyone bought it. The flights from wherever you came from, Des Moines, Birmingham, Utrecht, went on the ledger the week you landed. The agency calls this an advance. The advance is enthusiastic. It does not wait for you to earn anything before it begins compounding. The advance compounds without ceremony. The agency booker's name is Patricia. Patricia wears the same 3 blazers in rotation and carries a clipboard that she doesn't always write on but always has. She called you Thursday. She said you looked a little soft in the Polaroids from Tuesday's casting. She said a little soft the way a doctor says a little elevated the phrase is doing significant structural work. Patricia also called Imke, your Dutch roommate, to say the same thing about Imke's hips. Imke hung up and ate half a cracker over the sink with a very particular expression. Accomplished. Furious. Both at once. The check-in scale lives in a back room at the agency on 6th Avenue that has no other purpose. It's a room with a scale and a chair and a window that doesn't open. You come in on Mondays. Patricia reads the number. She writes it down. If the number is wrong, she gives you a timeline. The timeline is specific. It has a date and a quantity, the way a recipe has measurements, except a recipe usually ends with something edible. This is basically a Weight Watchers meeting, except your rent is the way in and nobody brings a casserole to celebrate. Your mother asks if you're warm enough. It's February. You tell her yes. You do not mention that backstage at the Bryant Park tents last Wednesday, the temperature under the lighting rigs hit 90 degrees while you stood in full makeup and a coat that was not your size. You sweated through the styling. The stylist patted you dry with a chamois and kept moving without making eye contact, the way a pit crew works on a car they've already stopped caring about. She asks about friends. You think of Lieselot, who you saw 3 nights ago at Twilo, sharing a booth with a photographer nobody had to introduce because everybody already knew him. Lieselot counts as a friend. Lieselot also borrowed your good coat 2 weeks ago and hasn't mentioned it since. Friendship here works the way editorial pay works. The prestige is real. The compensation is complicated. The calling card makes a soft click at 20 minutes. Your mother hears it too. She accelerates slightly, says the things she saves for the last 3 minutes. Your father sends love. The dog is fine. Your room is the same. Your room at home has a twin bed and a poster and a closet full of clothes that don't fit you anymore, though not in the direction she's imagining. She says she'll call next Sunday. Same time. You say good. You mean it. The line goes quiet in the particular way that international calling cards go quiet, not a click, just an absence, the sound of 23 minutes running out. You set the receiver down. The apartment is Sunday afternoon, silent. Somewhere in the second bedroom, Imke is doing something very quiet that is probably also its own rehearsed version of fine. You walk home at 4 in the morning along 6th Avenue past a bagel cart that has been parked at the same corner since the cart driver's father parked there in 1971. The cart sells bagels, donuts, coffee, orange juice, and a kind of breakfast sandwich on a Kaiser roll for $2.50. The cart driver is named Hassan. Hassan recognizes you. Hassan does not offer you anything anymore. 2 years ago, Hassan offered you a free coffee. You said no. He has not asked since. The bagel cart is doing approximately $800 in business tonight. You know this because you have been walking past it at 4 in the morning for 14 months, and you have developed a working knowledge of Hassan's customer volume, unit economics, and the approximate weekly revenue of a single midtown cart operation. You know this the way you know things you have no reason to know because your brain, running on 4 crackers and a cigarette since 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon, has decided that calorie-free information is a reasonable substitute for food. Today you ate one thing, a single plum, ripe, small, and largely decorative, taken from the bowl in the apartment kitchen that Imke keeps stocked because Imke believes in the psychological value of fruit that no one eats. Black coffee at 11, black coffee at 3, a cigarette between the two. At the Helmut Lang fitting at 6:30, someone's assistant left a tray of cheese and crackers on the side table, the kind of tray that appears at fittings because someone's assistant is optimistic. You stood 4 feet from it for an hour and a half. The tray went home with the assistant. That was dinner. This is the math. 500 calories, maybe 600 on a good day, compared to the 2,000 the human body files as a reasonable request. The gap between those two numbers has a name in the medical literature. In the industry, it doesn't have a name. It has a dress size. Currently yours is a 2. Patricia wrote it in the clipboard column next to your measurements last Tuesday, 33, 23, 34 in ballpoint pen, like she was filling out a customs form. She checked the column from the week before. Neither of you said anything. The column from the week before was the same. Somewhere behind you, Lieselot is still at the limelight. She went in at midnight with a photographer whose name you know, and whose work you recognize from 3 editorial spreads in ID that paid him considerably more than they paid anyone standing in front of his camera. The limelight on a Saturday is a specific ecosystem, dark enough that nobody's measuring anything, loud enough that nobody's having a conversation, and lit in a way that makes everyone look like a Corinne photograph, without the natural light or the creative intent. You left at 3, your call time is 8. Imke left at 2. Imke is asleep in the apartment right now with a precision that functions like a professional skill, which it basically is. Imke can sleep anywhere in under 4 minutes. She demonstrated this once on a location van between Queens and a studio in Red Hook and arrived looking refreshed in a way that seemed medically improbable. You asked her how. She said she just doesn't think about anything. You have been attempting this for 14 months. You pass a taxi idling outside a hotel, and the driver is eating something from a foil wrapper. It smells like egg and salt and something warm. You walk faster. The bagel cart is behind you now. Hassan is pouring coffee for a man in a suit who got off a night shift somewhere and wants a buttered roll and has no complicated relationship with wanting a buttered roll. The simplicity of this is, briefly, the most exhausting thing you've ever considered. The apartment is 11 blocks. You count them. Not because you need to, because counting is the kind of low-calorie cognitive activity that fills the space where appetite lives. The debt is $11,000 and accumulating. The call time is 8. The dress size is 2. Hassan's cart made approximately $800 tonight. These numbers share a spreadsheet in the back of your head that nobody asked you to build, and that runs constantly, quietly, like a refrigerator hum you've stopped hearing but that's still very much on. You stand in a white tent on a deck of plywood in Bryant Park in early February, while the temperature outside is 27 degrees and the temperature inside the tent, under the lighting rigs and the body heat of 300 people, is 91. You are wearing full hair, full makeup, a sample-sized dress, and a wool coat held in front of you by a dresser you have never met. The coat is for the runway. You are perspiring through your foundation. The foundation is matte. The matte is no longer matte. The tent smells like Elnet and adrenaline, and someone's dry-cleaned blazer that didn't survive the morning. There are maybe 30 models in various states of being assembled, plus twice that many people with clipboards, headsets, garment bags, and very specific jobs that no one has explained to you. A woman with a headset adjusts your collar, steps back, adjusts it again, and then adjusts it back to where it started. She nods. You have learned that the nod means nothing. The dresser is named Roland. Roland is efficient, talkative, and physically careful. He has safety pins attached to his forearm in ascending order of size, like a small armory he grew himself, the way some people grow a sourdough starter. He holds the coat in front of you with both hands, arms fully extended, as if offering it to someone who hasn't arrived yet. He has been standing like this for 11 minutes. Neither of you acknowledges this. The Hasselblad clicks from somewhere in the direction of the runway. One click pause, one click. The sound is medium format and final, like a small door closing on a decision. Each click means someone is becoming an image. You don't know which someone yet. You might find out in 3 months in a magazine you'll buy at a newsstand on your lunch break. Except you don't take lunch breaks and you don't eat lunch. Your shoes are 2 sizes too small. Sample shoes run a standard size 6 regardless of who's wearing them. And you are not a size 6. And no one has mentioned this because there are 6 other things ahead of it on the priority list. The shoes have been on your feet for 40 minutes. They've formed opinions about you already. Strong ones. This is where the timeline matters. You go on 4th. Before you go on 4th, you go on hold, which means you stand still while someone who isn't you decides something about your hair. A stylist named Frederica detaches a section near your left ear, looks at it, and reattaches it in the same position. This takes 4 minutes. It is indistinguishable from the original configuration. Frederica seems satisfied. You have 500 calories and $11,000 of debt, and no strong opinions about your left ear at this point in the day. Outside, in the park, people are eating lunch on benches, despite the February cold. You know this because there's a gap in the tent's back panel and you can see a man eating a sandwich maybe 40 feet away. He's eating it the way people eat when no one is watching and no one cares. Both hands, no particular posture. You watch him for approximately 6 seconds before Frederica reappears. Of course, the runway itself is the easy part. 2 minutes, maybe 2.5. 120 feet of plywood painted white, editors in the front row with their programs and their particular expressions not blank, not interested. Something precisely between the two, which is the expression the industry has collectively decided means you're paying attention without being impressed. You have been practicing that expression. You are not supposed to have it. You're supposed to give it. You will go out there in shoes that want you dead, in a dress that fits you because you weigh what you weigh, under lights that turn the 91-degree tent into something slightly hotter than 91 degrees, and you will walk in a specific way at a specific pace and turn at a specific mark and come back, and then it's over. And then Roland wants the coat back immediately, before you've stopped moving, and Frederica is already looking at your hair like it owes her something. The sandwich man is gone when you check the gap in the tent. He has finished and left, and gotten on with his afternoon. That seems, right now, like an extraordinary thing to be able to do. You change clothes in a curtained-off area the size of a shower stall in 5 minutes, while 3 dressers work on you simultaneously. One dresser unzips you, one dresser does the shoes. One dresser has the next look on a hanger over her shoulder and is already holding the necklace. You raise your arms, you step out of the dress, you step into the next dress, you step into the next shoes. You do not speak. Speaking is for after the show. There is no breakfast in here. There is no chair. The dresser with the necklace is named Patricia. She has been doing this for 11 years, and her hands move the way a surgeon's hands move, except she's clasping a 14-carat choker around your neck in 4 seconds flat while simultaneously stepping sideways to avoid the other dresser who is on her knees repinning your... Patricia doesn't look at your face. She looks at the necklace. This is professional courtesy. In this stall, you are not a person. You are a surface that needs finishing. 5 minutes contains the following: quick, precise, and slightly cruel work. There's the zip of the previous look coming off, which sticks twice because the sample wasn't made for a human body that breathes. There's the next dress going over your head, which smells like Elnet and someone else's deodorant, and is technically your size, which is a size 2, which your body arrived at through methods we'll call dietary discipline and leave there. There's the shoes closed-toe mules with a 3-inch heel that belong to a size 8 foot, and you are a 9, and no one mentions this out loud because mentioning it out loud doesn't change the shoe. It just creates a problem with a name. The curtain is polyester. It does not stay closed on its own. It has opinions about staying closed, and its opinion is no. A hand reaches through from the other side and pulls it shut again. The hand belongs to someone who does only that stands outside the curtain, pulling it closed every 40 seconds for the duration of the show. It is their entire job for the next 90 minutes. Everyone in this tent has exactly one job and is doing it with the focus of a person diffusing something. You are in look 4. Look 4 is a sheer blouse over a wide-leg trouser and a belt that has to be threaded through 7 loops by hand in under 45 seconds. The belt is threading. The threading is happening. It will not make it through all 7 loops. 5 loops is a victory. 6 is a miracle. Nobody backstage has seen 7. The show has 22 looks. You are walking 12 of them. Each change window is 4 to 6 minutes. The runway itself takes about 90 seconds per pass. You will spend 42 minutes changing clothes today. You will spend 18 minutes walking. You will spend 0 minutes eating, because there is nothing to eat back here except a bowl of hard candy near the lighting board that nobody touches because candy has sugar, and sugar is a conversation nobody wants to have at a weigh-in on Thursday. The candy bowl has been there since Tuesday. It will be there on Saturday. It radiates a specific kind of passive aggression, the gesture of someone who technically provided food. Patricia clips the necklace. The other dresser stands. You are look 4. You are ready. You push through the curtain and someone points you toward the runway entrance and you walk, because walking is the job, and the job is the only thing in this tent that isn't waiting. You walk past the front row of an American designer's runway show in late September, while the editor-in-chief of American Vogue sits 12 feet to your right, wearing sunglasses indoors at 7:42 p.m. She is taking notes on a small index card. The note is not about you. The note is about the dress, the cut, the styling, the show as a whole. You will never know what the note says. You will, in 2 weeks, find out whether or not the note was favourable, which is the only useful version of the information. Anna Wintour has been editor-in-chief since 1988. American Vogue has a circulation of approximately 1.2 million in 1995, which means that one index card, filled out in one front row, can redirect the commercial decisions of an entire industry for 6 months. The sunglasses are not an affectation. They are a professional tool. You cannot tell where she is looking. That is the point. The front row is not seating. The front row is a published document, selective, expensive, and very visible. Wintour sits second from the runway. Hamish Bowles sits to her left. Andre Leon Talley sits to her right in a velvet cape that takes up 3 seats and which nobody has ever asked him to remove. Corinne Reutfeld is 2 over, in head-to-toe black, smoking a cigarette she has just lit despite the venue's stated rules about smoking, because Corinne Reutfeld is Corinne Reutfeld. The second row is the footnotes. The third row is journalists from markets nobody's watching yet. A stylist named Christiane is stationed near the side curtain with a clipboard. She is logging the running order against a printed lookbook, marking adjustments with a pencil stub too small to hold comfortably. She does not look up when you pass. She looked up earlier in the week, during fittings, when the adjustments were still possible. Now they are not possible. The pencil marks a memorial. The show lasts 22 minutes. You walk 11 looks. In those 22 minutes, the notes go down, the photographs get taken, the opinions form. The opinions are not delivered to you. They are delivered into a conference room at 4 Times Square, folded into a layout decision, and eventually expressed as page count. You get 14 pages or you get 6. 6 pages is a full story at most magazines. At Vogue, 6 pages is a suggestion that next season you might want to reconsider. The editorial rate for 14 pages, if you get 14 pages, is around $500 a day. Wintour doesn't write the rate. Wintour doesn't see the rate. The rate is decided 3 floors down by an editor named Sasha, who has a filofax and a habit of underlining numbers in pencil. Sasha will see the contact sheet on Thursday. Sasha will draw a pencil line through 6 of the frames. The pencil line is $1,000 a frame, and it is going through your face, and Sasha is not looking up. The index card goes into a small leather folder. The folder closes. Anna Wintour stands when the finale walk begins, because the finale walk is when all the looks appear simultaneously and the photograph gets taken for the record. She stands, watches for perhaps 40 seconds, and sits again. The 40 seconds are the verdict. Nobody announces the verdict. The verdict is already travelling. Backstage, Patricia is unhooking the last necklace of the night, and the candy bowl still has everything in it. Thursday's weigh-in isn't a rumour. It's a fixed point around which the rest of the week organises itself, the meals that don't happen, the cigarettes that replace them, the black coffee going cold on a folding table near the lighting board. The front row doesn't see the folding table. The front row sees the dress. That is, more or less, the entire arrangement. You shoot a denim campaign in 1,995 inches, a basement set built inside a Brooklyn studio that has been dressed to look like a recreation room from a 1973 split-level home. The set has wood-panelled walls, a brown shag carpet, a plaid couch, and a lamp with a yellowed shade. The photographer is Stephen Meisel. The art director is from the client. There are 7 people in the room. The art director gives the direction. The direction is about the angle of your gaze, the position of your knees, and the way you are holding the hem of the shirt. The set is deliberate. Every prop has been sourced. Someone drove to New Jersey to find that specific plaid couch. Someone else approved the yellowed lampshade in a meeting that probably lasted 40 minutes. The wood panelling is real, not printed on vinyl, not a digital backdrop, actual wood panelling, nailed to MDF boards, because Meisel wanted the texture to catch the light a specific way. The Hasselblad clicks. You adjust your gaze by 3 degrees. The Hasselblad clicks again. The campaign runs on Times Square billboards in the fall. It also runs in bus shelters, in Details magazine, in a television spot that airs during prime time. Then it runs into a federal investigation. The FBI opens a case. The case concerns whether the models appear to be minors. The models are very thin. Some are very young. The campaign is pulled. The FBI closes the case without charges. The wood-panelled basement has now been investigated by the United States government, which is a sentence that was not anticipated in the meeting where they approved the lampshade. Mario shot Kate for the Calvin Klein Obsession campaign, intimate, beachy, and entirely funded by the Cologne budget 1 year before this one, just the 2 of them. On an island, Moss 20 years old, Sorrenti her boyfriend, the camera his. Calvin Klein essentially sent the couple on a holiday and billed it as a shoot. The result looked like something found in a shoebox. That was the point. The Obsession ads ran everywhere. They sold the fragrance. They sold the feeling that the photographer was in love with the subject, which was not difficult to fake because he was. Meisel's campaign is the same logic taken one step further. The basement looks like somewhere something is being documented rather than staged. Risa, the wardrobe assistant on set, straightens the hem of the plaid couch cushion with the focused expression of someone diffusing something small and sensitive. She does this between every take. The cushion doesn't need straightening. She does it anyway, because the cushion is the one thing on the set she can control. The campaign gets pulled. The FBI opens a door and then closes it. Calvin Klein issues a statement saying the campaign was intended to be provocative in the tradition of American fashion. This is technically accurate. The wood-panelled basement sits in a Brooklyn storage unit somewhere after that. The lamp with the yellowed shade probably ends up back in New Jersey, on a curb, waiting for somebody's uncle. The plaid couch outlives all of it. What the campaign actually does, in the 3 weeks it runs before being pulled, is reach people who have never opened a copy of ID in their lives. The Times Square billboard is 40 feet wide. The bus shelter ad is at eye level in Midtown, in the Bronx, in Queens. CK1 had already put hollow-cheeked faces in those same bus shelters the year before. 50 million units sold, androgynous and pale, in black and white, so the infrastructure for the aesthetic to reach your commute is already there. The basement campaign is louder. The backlash is louder. The president will weigh in, 2 years from now, by name, at a fundraiser. That part comes later. For now, the Hasselblad is clicking, the art director is adjusting the angle of your knees, and the lamp with the yellowed shade is doing exactly what it was sourced to do. You stand on a strip of paper seamless with 11 other models for a CK1 campaign shot in black and white by Herb Ritz on a Tuesday in September. The 11 others are arranged by height and by hair length, which is to say not arranged at all, since everyone's hair is short and uniformly messy and everyone is roughly the same height. You are interchangeable on purpose. The campaign requires that you be interchangeable. The fragrance is being sold as the same fragrance for everyone. So is the face. CK1, launched in 1994 as a genderless fragrance in a frosted glass bottle that looked like a laboratory specimen container, which was either a design choice or a warning. The bottle doesn't clarify. The campaign ran in black and white in every major market subway platforms in Brooklyn, bus shelters in Liverpool, billboard faces staring down at pedestrians on Fifth Avenue with the specific expression of someone who hasn't eaten since Thursday and is fine with that. 50 million units in 2 years. That is not a fragrance. That is a weather event. What you are wearing, nothing, essentially. The styling is minimal, deliberate, and unfinished. A white cotton tank top and low-slung jeans, the kind that sit below your hip bones which are visible. This is load-bearing information for the campaign. The hip bones are not a side effect of the look, they are the look. Herb Ritz shoots you from slightly below, the camera angled up so that the hollows above your clavicle catch shadow. You didn't create those hollows this morning. You've been creating them since approximately 1993. A stylist named Petra adjusts someone's collar for the 4th time, then stands back and looks at the group the way a contractor looks at load-bearing walls. She makes a small, satisfied sound. She moves on. The Hasselblad clicks. Petra is already adjusting someone else's collar. The brief for this campaign is androgyny, which in 1994 is a specific aesthetic instruction that means not feminine, not masculine, not particularly healthy-looking, and ideally from somewhere ambiguous. You qualify. Everyone on this paper seamless qualifies. You are the entire concept distilled into 12 people who could, in the right light, all be the same person. Now, the practical reality of standing on that paper seamless is this. It's September in a studio in Midtown, with the lights up full and the air conditioning running just under adequate, and you've had black coffee and half an apple since 7 this morning. It's 2 in the afternoon. The coffee has opinions about this timeline. Your hands are steady because you've trained them to be. Your face is neutral because neutral is what Herb Ritz needs, and also because expressing strong emotion requires reserves you're currently not carrying. Of course, the campaign will reach people who've never been inside a fashion magazine. That's the point. CK1 is the first major fragrance to advertise outside the glossy pages bubble subway ads, bus shelters, outdoor placements in cities where Vogue doesn't circulate. The hollow-cheeked faces in black and white land in front of teenagers in Cincinnati and Coventry who've never heard of the face and don't need to have. The image translates without the context. The context was never required. The photographer calls cut at 4:30. You step off the seamless. Someone hands you a water bottle and a cigarette, in that order, and you accept both. The paper seamless has a faint impression where 12 pairs of feet stood for 6 hours. It looks like a crime scene outline, but tidier, more symmetrical. The art director is already on the phone describing it as a triumph. The triumph will land on a Times Square billboard at the size of a small commercial aircraft, 12 identical faces hovering over the cab line, looking down at people on their way to work like a deity with very specific opinions about the mod thinness. Your booker tells you on a Wednesday that the client wants you down 4 pounds by the Saturday morning fitting. The deadline is not negotiable. The pound count is not negotiable. The fitting is not negotiable. You write -4 on the corner of your appointment book in blue pen and then black it out with the same blue pen because you have been told by an older girl that booker-imposed weight notes are never to be written down where another booker might see them, and your appointment book is the kind of object that gets handed across a desk. 4 pounds in 3 days is not a diet. It's a project. You approach it with the organizational seriousness of someone preparing for a job interview, which is essentially what it is. The plan involves black coffee, which suppresses hunger and has no calories. Cigarettes, which suppress hunger and have no calories. Water, which has no calories and fills the stomach with something that is technically there. And if things go well on Friday, half an apple. The apple is the treat. You have not lost the capacity for anticipation. Let's talk about the scale. The scale is small, white, and load-bearing in a way it was not designed to be. It lives in the agency's back room, past the casting wall where the composite cards are pinned in rows. Your booker, a woman named Philippa who keeps a mechanical pencil tucked above her ear at all times, walks you back there on Saturday morning without ceremony. The scale is a standard physician's balance, the kind with the sliding metal weights. Philippa moves the counterweight with the focus of someone adjusting a very small, very important budget. She doesn't comment on the number out loud. She writes it in your file. The file does not comment either, but it is present. The weigh-in takes approximately 45 seconds. It is the most consequential 45 seconds of your week, which is basically a Weight Watchers meeting, except your commission rate is attached to the outcome and nobody offers you a sticker for good progress. Now, 4 pounds isn't always 4 pounds. Sometimes it's water. Sometimes it's the specific phrasing your booker uses when she calls the client afterward and tells them you're exactly where we need you to be, which may or may not reflect the number on the file. You have learned not to ask about the gap between the number and the phrasing. The gap exists. It has always existed. It has its own professional function. This is where the cigarette budget becomes a line item. You're 19. You smoke approximately half a pack a day, which is modest by the standards of the agency's front room, where the ashtray on the booking desk refills itself with a kind of ambient inevitability. You just know the cigarette does 2 things. It occupies your hands during a fitting, and it is not food. By Friday evening, you are lightheaded in the specific way that is different from hungry. Hungry is a complaint. Lightheaded is a condition. You sit on the edge of your bed in the Murray Hill apartment, 4 girls, 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom that the agency's advance payment technically covers, and you eat the half apple slowly, over 11 minutes, because an older girl told you that eating slowly extends the feeling of having eaten. The apple has opinions about being eaten this slowly. It has started to brown at the edges. You eat it anyway. Saturday morning, you make the fitting. The sample closes. Philippa makes a small mark in her notebook that you don't ask about. The client's assistant hands you a call sheet for Tuesday. You walk back out through the casting wall, past the composite cards pinned in rows, including yours, past the scale you can no longer see but know is there, and into the kind of February cold that hits Bryant Park at 8 in the morning like a flat, wet cloth. You have 4 days until the next check-in. The math starts again on its own. You faint in a hotel hallway in Milan at 7:18 a.m. on a Friday in late February after a fitting that began at 5:30 a.m. and a dinner that did not occur the night before. You wake up on a piece of patterned carpet with the assistant from the production company crouched beside you holding a bottle of Pellegrino and a small Italian pastry, both of which she has bought from the lobby. She asks if you are okay. You say yes. She does not believe you. Neither of you says the part where you do not believe it either. The pastry is cornetto, warm, with a small amount of apricot jam inside. You eat it in 3 bites on the floor. Nobody photographs this. This is the only meal you will eat before the show at 3 p.m., and your body accepts it with the quiet gratitude of something that has been waiting for a very long time. After you stand up, Francesca is the assistant. Francesca has worked Milan Fashion Week for 6 consecutive seasons, and she helps you to your feet without making a production of it. She has done this before. Not with you specifically, but with someone approximately your size, in approximately this hallway, probably last February. She hands you the Pellegrino. She does not call the show's producer. She does not call your agency. She checks that your knees are stable, tells you to drink slowly, and returns to the production office, because the show starts in 8 hours and the lighting rig on the far left has a problem nobody has solved yet. Francesca is very efficient. This is not the crisis in her day. The floor has left a small impression on your right cheek. You can feel it. Day. In 2 hours you'll be in a makeup chair, and the impression will be gone under foundation, which at this level of production is theatrical grade, and applied with the focus of someone painting a very expensive ceiling. The makeup artist won't ask what happened. The redness on your cheek tells a story she has seen before, and pointing at it is not part of her job. You are in Milan. You are 17. Photographers whose names appear next to the word important have requested you specifically. Your agency takes 15 to 20% against the $38,000 you owe them for composite cards, portfolio, the Murray Hill apartment, the flight to London they booked in October without asking. The debt is a moving number that prefers to be looked at sideways. Your booker tracks it. You don't. A cleaning maid pushes a service trolley past your knees at 7:30. The trolley has neatly stacked towels, a small dish of foil-wrapped chocolates, and a vase of carnations that have given up sometime overnight. The maid steps around you the way you step around a chair that has been put there on purpose. She does not look down. She has done this hallway every morning for 9 years. You are the first cornetto-related collapse of the week, but you are not the first. The hotel hallway is beige. The carpet is a pattern of dark red diamonds that would be deeply ugly anywhere else, but which here, on the floor of a 4-star hotel in Milan in late February, has the specific institutional charm of somewhere that has absorbed many problems quietly and charged them to a room. You sit against the wall for another 4 minutes. A man in a suit rolls a garment bag past you without looking down. The garment bag is on wheels. It is better travelled than you are. By the time you reach the backstage tent at noon, the cornetto from the hallway is the only meal that's happened to your body in 18 hours, and your body, to its credit, has stopped complaining and started bargaining. The temperature under the lighting rigs is already climbing toward 90 degrees. The smell hits you in layers. Elnet hairspray first, then something floral and expensive that belongs to nobody specific, then the flat chemical note of theatrical foundation being applied to 10 faces simultaneously in a room that was not designed for 10 faces. Someone offers you a cigarette. You take it. It is, by this point in your career, a reflex. The cigarette is small, portable, and undemanding. The cigarette does not require a weigh-in. You wake up in the model apartment on the morning of the 17th of August, 1993, and there is a copy of the New York Times on the kitchen counter, folded open to a piece in the Styles section by Amy Spindler with your picture in it. Your roommate from Stockholm has brought the paper home from a bodega. The picture is from the Bournemouth shoot. The article uses the word waif 6 times. The article uses your name twice. The article uses the phrase glamorizing self-destruction once. Your mother calls 47 minutes later. The Bournemouth shoot was not a fashion shoot in the way anyone would recognize a fashion shoot. No studio, no lighting rigs, no stylist with a rolling rack and a safety pin collection. Just a dingy flat, a window, whatever February light came through it, and Corinne Day pointing a camera at you in a feathered headdress while you stood very still, because the headdress was precarious and the floor was cold. The photographs are unglamorous in the specific way that takes skill to achieve. Unglamorous on purpose costs more than glamorous. Nobody tells you this at 14. Amy Spindler's piece runs 800 words and is not a profile. It's a taxonomy. It names you as the emblem of something, which is different from naming you. An emblem doesn't eat lunch. An emblem doesn't have a roommate from Stockholm who reads the paper on the fire escape and brings it inside without comment. The emblem in the photograph has visible ribs and a headdress and is standing in natural light in a way that was, in 1993, considered a provocation. The article considers it a provocation. Your agency will consider it an asset. These are not the same provocation. Your mother is in Croydon. The conversation is gentle, careful, and insufficient. It's early afternoon there. She has seen the paper a friend has rung her, or she found it herself. The timeline is unclear and her voice does the thing where it is very calm and therefore very loud. She asks if you are eating. You say yes. You are standing in the kitchen looking at a single banana on the counter that has been there since Tuesday. The banana is beginning to have opinions about its situation. You say yes again, in a slightly different register, which is the register that means please stop asking. She knows this register. She invented this register. The article reaches a specific kind of reader, a style section reader, a 1993 reader who has recently noticed something happening in magazine pages and couldn't name it until now. The word waif does the naming. It lands flat and clinical and slightly medieval, which is what makes it stick. By the end of the week, it's in 3 follow-up pieces, 2 television segments, and a memo that goes out from at least one modelling agency explaining, in remarkably patient language, that the agency does not endorse the characterization. The agency does not change its tape measure. Meanwhile, your booker at the agency calls 2 hours after your mother. She is cheerful. She says the piece is great visibility. She uses the word visibility the way a contractor uses the word character when describing a plumbing situation. She asks if you have the Calvin Klein fitting on Thursday. You do. She says wear something easy to get in and out of. She means don't eat before. She doesn't say this. She says it the other way, which is by saying nothing. By noon, 3 other girls in the apartment have read the article. Petra, who shares the smaller room with a girl from Cape Town, reads it twice and sets it down on the table with the particular care of someone putting something sharp in a drawer. She doesn't say anything. She makes coffee. The coffee is black. The coffee is always black. There are no mugs that match in this apartment, and there never have been, and nobody has noticed, because matching mugs require a person who lives here, and everyone here is in transit, technically, even the ones who have been here 14 months. The copy of the Times stays on the counter for 4 days. Nobody throws it out, nobody folds it back up. It just migrates counter to table to top of the refrigerator, accumulating the passive authority of an object that has been there long enough to belong. Your roommate tells you on the morning of the 4th of February 1997 that the photographer Davide Sorrenti died yesterday at 20 years old in a hospital in New York from heart failure brought on by heroin combined with a blood disorder his family had not publicly discussed. You knew David. You shot with David twice. David had taken your test at 16 in a studio on Houston Street that smelled like vanilla candles and developing chemicals. You sit on the edge of the bunk bed. Your roommate puts a sweater around your shoulders. The sweater is hers wool, the colour of a paper bag, smelling faintly of the cedar block she keeps in her drawer because her mother told her to. Neither of you speaks for some time. The morning is grey, quiet, and somehow ordinary. Davide was 20. He was also, by every professional measure, already established. His work had run in Vogue Italia and ID. His name appeared on tear sheets that other photographers kept in their portfolios as a reference for what the light should look like. He was the younger brother of Mario Sorrenti, who shot the Obsession campaign with Kate in 1994. Fashion had a way of making the Sorrenti name feel like a dynasty, which is a strange thing to be when you're 20 and you're gone. The apartment goes quiet in a specific way that morning, not the silence of people who don't know what to say. The silence of people who know exactly what to say and have decided not to. Petra, who books mostly commercial work, sits at the kitchen table and stares at her coffee. She doesn't drink it. The coffee cools. Petra turns the mug in her hands like she's checking whether it's real. The radiator clanks once, twice, then goes still. The radiator has been doing this since November. The radiator has its own grief schedule. Nobody in this apartment has ever called the super about it. Let's talk about what you know. You know that heroin had been on the periphery of every show season for 3 years. You know it at the Limelight. You know it at the Tunnel. You know it from the way certain people looked at rap parties, that particular variety of calm that cost something. You did not touch it. You touched cigarettes and occasionally a drink, and twice, Something handed to you at a table in a booth that you didn't ask the name of. The industry had a way of making specific ignorance feel like self-preservation. By the afternoon, the calls start. Your booker calls, not to check on you to ask whether you're available for a fitting on Thursday. The fitting information arrives in the same sentence as the condolence, which is either callousness or efficiency, and in 1997 the two look identical from the inside. You write down the address. You hang up. The address is on a notepad that also has, written in your handwriting from 2 weeks ago, the name of a nutritionist a casting director recommended. You haven't called her. The number just sits there, next to Thursday's fitting, next to everything else. Davide's mother, Barbara Sorrenti, will give an interview within the month. She will say that the fashion industry glamorized what killed her son. She will say it clearly and without equivocation, the way mothers say things when they have nothing left to protect. Bill Clinton will say something similar 3 months later at a fundraiser, which is the point at which a magazine trend becomes a sentence in a presidential speech, which is either a sign that something has changed or a sign that nothing has and someone finally noticed. You don't cry until Thursday. Not at the fitting. The fitting requires you to hold very still while a woman with pins in her mouth adjusts a seam at your hip and doesn't look at your face. You cry in the cab on the way home, briefly, while the driver plays something on the radio you don't recognize. There is a small plastic figurine taped to his dashboard, a saint, maybe, or a cartoon character with a halo that came inside a packet of crisps in 1989. You can't tell. It nods gently every time he brakes. It has been nodding for years, and it will keep nodding long after this cab ride is over, which is, at this particular moment, an extraordinarily comforting thing to know. The driver does not look in the mirror. The figurine keeps nodding. The radio plays a song you don't know, and then another, and then another, and the cab keeps moving north. You watch the President of the United States on a hotel television in Paris on the evening of the 21st of May 1997, while a stylist next to you fits a black sample-size dress over your shoulders. The President is at a Democratic National Committee fundraiser. He is speaking about the fashion industry by name. He is using the phrase glamorize addiction. The phrase is being televised internationally. The stylist exhales through her nose. Her exhale is brief, precise, and conclusive. The stylist returns to the pins. She pins the dress at the waist. The fitting continues. The President is still speaking when she finishes. The hotel is on the Rue du Faubourg Saint-Honoré, which is the kind of address that exists specifically to make other addresses feel inadequate. Your room has a window that faces a courtyard. You haven't opened it. You've been in Paris 4 days and you've seen the inside of 3 studios, a casting room that smelled of wet plaster, and this room, that's Paris. The croissants are there. You wouldn't know. Let's talk about what Clinton actually says. He says you do not need to glamorize addiction to sell clothes. He says it flat, into a microphone, at a fundraiser, where the chicken is probably overcooked and the wine is definitely not. The sentence takes 6 seconds. It has been in preparation, in some form, since February. Since a wooden floor in Brooklyn went quiet and someone's 20-year-old didn't come home. The President doesn't say Davide Sorrenti's name in the clip you're watching. He doesn't have to. Everyone in every hotel room on this circuit knows exactly which death the sentence is about. The stylist, her name is Celine, she has a measuring tape looped twice around her wrist like a bracelet, adjusts the hem without looking up at the screen. She's been doing fittings for 11 years. She has opinions about hemlines and none whatsoever about American politics. This is, in a very French way, the correct response. She tugs the fabric level, pins it, steps back. The dress fits. Of course it fits. The dress is a size 0 and so are you, and this is not a coincidence, it's a Tuesday. The French television presenter is interviewing a fashion journalist who uses the phrase reaction moralisatrice, which roughly translates to moral overreaction, which is one way to describe a sitting president commenting on a magazine aesthetic, and also possibly not the right way. You don't weigh in. You are, at this moment, being pinned into a garment while eating half a pear from the room service tray, which cost €18 and arrived on a plate the size of a dinner platter with a single sprig of mint. The presentation was impeccable. The portion was not. Now, the thing about the speech is that it doesn't change anything that week. Not the casting, not the sample sizes. not Celine's measuring tape. Somewhere in Midtown Manhattan, a booker is still writing down numbers. Somewhere in the Bryant Park tents already being dismantled now, the February show's long-finished a rack of size 2 samples waits for September. The infrastructure doesn't hear a fundraiser speech. It has a very well-developed sense of selective hearing. And yet the sentence exists now in the international record. You do not need to glamorize addiction to sell clothes. It's the kind of sentence that gets clipped, archived, reprinted. Amy Spindler will put it in her next piece. Women's Wear Daily will run it above the fold. In 4 years, it will appear in academic papers about body image and mass media, the kind of papers written by people who were not, on the 21st of May 1997, being pinned into a dress in Paris while eating half a pear. Celine unloops the measuring tape from her wrist and writes your waist measurement in a small spiral notebook. She's written it before. She'll write it again in September. The number hasn't changed in 8 months. She closes the notebook with the practiced efficiency of someone who finds the number neither remarkable nor troubling. The president finishes his remarks. The television cuts to weather. You receive, in early September 1997, a memo from your agency, printed on agency letterhead in 12-point Times New Roman, that informs you, in 3 short paragraphs, that the editorial climate is shifting and that clients are increasingly requesting models with a healthier body type for upcoming campaigns. The memo does not define healthier. The memo does not specify a target weight. The memo asks you to please be in touch with your booker if you have any questions. You read it standing in the apartment kitchen. The kettle is on, the kettle whistles, you do not move. The memo is 3 paragraphs long and takes about 40 seconds to read. You have been in this industry long enough to understand that a 3-paragraph agency memo asking you to call your booker is not actually an invitation to call your booker. It is a document. The paper is very white. The date at the top is September 1997. That is the part you reread. The memo is not a raise. The memo is not an apology. The memo is not a refund on the composite cards, the portfolio, the shared apartment in Murray Hill, or any of the advance fees that have been accumulating since you were 17. The debt has no memo. The debt does not shift with the editorial climate. The debt is, in this regard, more stable than the aesthetic. Your booker's name is Tracy. Tracy has a desk near the window, a coffee mug that says something ironic about Mondays, and a stack of green and white tractor feed paper she has not gotten around to filing since June. Tracy is calm, capable, and structurally complicit. You have seen Tracy weigh you on the scale beside the filing cabinet and tell you, in the voice she uses for administrative tasks, that you need to lose 2 pounds before the 15th. Tracy is not the villain of this. Tracy is processing a spreadsheet. When you call Tracy to ask about the memo, Tracy says the industry is evolving and it's a positive development, and she'll keep you posted on castings. The whole call takes 9 seconds. You thank her. You hang up. Outside, the September light is coming through the window at an angle that makes the kitchen look almost staged. The fruit bowl has 1 apple in it. It has had 1 apple in it since Tuesday. This is not a poverty detail. This is a habit so deep it no longer registers as a choice. You buy 1 piece of fruit. You do not eat the piece of fruit immediately. The piece of fruit becomes ambient furniture until you eat it standing over the sink 3 days later because you have a fitting at 2. The apple does not comment on the memo. The apple has been here longer than the memo has. Meanwhile, in the pages of British Vogue and American Vogue and ID and The Face, the shift is beginning not in the memos, not in the booker's notebooks, but in the castings. A photographer named someone you haven't worked with books a girl with visible muscle tone. The call sheet notes her measurements. Her waist is 25 inches. In 1994, 25 inches was a reason to be gently redirected. In September 1997, 25 inches is, apparently, a healthier body type. The terminology has moved, the tape measure has not. You fold the memo in thirds. You put it on the counter next to the kettle. The kettle has stopped whistling by now, and the water inside has gone from boiling to merely very hot, and in another 10 minutes it will just be water sitting in a kettle, which is what it was before any of this started. You go in November 1998 to a casting for a campaign you would have booked easily in 1995 and easily in 1996 and probably in 1997, and you do not book it. The girl who books it is 21 years old, 5 feet 11, Brazilian, and visibly has muscle in her shoulders. You see her on the way out. She is wearing jeans and a tank top and is eating an apple. You make eye contact. She nods. You nod. The elevator doors close. The new face is healthy, muscular, and visibly fed. The campaign will run in February. You will not be in it. Her name, you will find out later, is in the trades already. She walked Galliano's Givenchy show in January, and the coverage used the phrase, "the return of the body," 3 times in 2 paragraphs. 3 times. The fashion press discovered that human bodies have mass and wrote about it like a scientific breakthrough. The issue sold very well. Let's talk about what has changed. The casting director's clipboard still exists. The scale at the agency still exists. Tracy still exists and is still handling calls in under 10 seconds. What has shifted is the column on the clipboard that says type, and where it used to say something approximating your specific set of measurements, it now says something that approximates her shoulders. You don't fit the new column any better than you fit the old one, which is a specific kind of irony that does not appear in women's wear daily. The apple is the detail that stays with you. Not unkindly, she was just eating an apple in an elevator lobby, the way a person eats an apple, because she was hungry and apples exist. For 4 years, your relationship with a single piece of fruit was a negotiation. A budget. A transaction that required 40 minutes of mental preparation and 1 cigarette on each side. She finishes it before the elevator arrives and drops the core into a trash can by the door without breaking stride. The trash can accepts this without drama. Meanwhile, the debt is still $23,000. The memo from September mentioned nothing about debt. The shifting editorial climate did not shift the compounding structure of the advance fees or the composite card charges from $1,994 or the agency percentage that came off every booking before the number reached your account. The new aesthetic has opinions about your shoulders. The outstanding balance has no opinions whatsoever. It simply continues. A booker named Delia, not Tracy. Tracy has moved to another floor. Leaves a voicemail about repositioning your book toward commercial. This is not a demotion, the voicemail says, in the tone of something that is a demotion. Commercial pays more per day than editorial ever did. Catalogue work for a department store in New Jersey pays 3 times what French Vogue paid and requires nothing of you except that you stand in front of a white backdrop wearing a blouse and look as though the blouse is an acceptable life. Choice. You have done this. You have stood in front of white backdrops in New Jersey in blouses. The Hasselblad still clicks. The hairspray is still Aquanet. Nobody weighs you afterward. The campaign The Brazilian Girl books runs in February, as promised. You see it on a bus shelter on 6th Avenue on a Tuesday morning when it is 31 degrees and the bus is late. She is in colour, which is new. Almost everything was black and white for so long that colour reads as a statement of position. She looks warm. She looks like someone who ate breakfast. The bus shelter does not editorialise. It just holds the image up to the street, steady and enormous, while the cold comes in off the avenue and everyone waiting turns their collar up and looks at their shoes. And so here we are. The tents in Bryant Park have come down. The Hasselblads have gone quiet. The cigarette smoke has cleared from every backstage corridor between Manhattan and Paris, and the bathroom scale at Ford has been retired to a storage closet on Lafayette Street that nobody opens anymore. A 14-year-old got discovered at Gatwick. A 23-inch waist became a job requirement with a deadline. A photographer named Davide died in February at 20. A president of the United States went on television in May to give a speech about a fragrance ad. None of that, in 1995, felt remarkable. That, in 1995, was a Tuesday. Big thanks again to whoever asked for this one. I hope it lands gently. I hope the next thing you eat is bigger than a grape, and that nobody is weighing you on Thursday. So go ahead and let the day fade. Loosen your jaw. Let your shoulders drop. Let the blanket settle on your legs and stop having opinions for the night. You do not have to fit into anything by Friday. Sleep well.